Imagine if I told you that the most extraordinary object in history has been missing for over 2,500 years. The Ark of the Covenant, this earthly throne of God, did not just vanish. Someone hid it on purpose, and clues to its resting place might be hidden right inside the Bible. Today, we will piece together everything we know about this legendary sacred relic, following its journey from its divine creation to its mysterious vanishing act. And we will look at the incredible theories of where it is today. But first, if you are new to the channel, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to join us. Your support helps us keep sharing these incredible historical journeys with you. Also, tell us where you are watching from and what time it is. We love building this global family. Now, let us begin our journey to find the lost throne of God. Deep in the mountains of Ethiopia, an ancient church guards what might be the most sacred object on earth. Holy guardians whisper about a gold-covered chest that once held the literal words of God. They claim it rests behind stone walls, untouched for thousands of years. But are they wrong? Are they lying? Or are they keeping the ultimate secret? This is the story of the Ark of the Covenant, a chest of wood and gold that vanished from Jerusalem over 2,000 years ago. Some believe it holds stone tablets carved by the finger of God. Others say it holds power to level empires or raise the dead. Kings have died searching for it. Whole armies have marched across deserts following mere rumors of its location. Explorers and scholars, priests and treasure hunters, all obsessed with the exact same mystery. Where is the throne of God today? Its last recorded home was inside Solomon's glorious temple, gleaming in the Jerusalem sun. There the ark sat in pitch darkness, behind a veil so thick no light could penetrate. Only one man could ever approach it just once a year. The high priest walked in, shaking with tiny bells sewn into his robe, so those outside knew he was still breathing. If the ringing stopped, they would pull him out with a rope tied to his ankle. Then the Babylonians came. Fire consumed the temple, smoke choked the holy city for days, and when the ashes cooled, the ark was gone. No record says it was stolen. No witness saw it destroyed. It simply vanished, as if it had never been real. Yet the stories never died. Medieval knights swore they unearthed it deep beneath the stables of King Solomon. Ethiopian emperors claimed it as the source of their divine right to rule. Nazi search teams combed the deserts, believing that owning the ark meant ruling the world. Hollywood turned it into the ultimate movie prop, a chest so deadly that looking inside would melt the flesh right off your bones. But somewhere between myth and history lies the truth. The ark was real. It actually existed. Ancient scriptures describe it with incredible detail. Every measurement, every material, every golden angel on its lid. For centuries, it was the beating heart of Israel. It led armies into battle. It struck down anyone who dared to touch it without permission. It was the presence of God, made physical in wood and gold. Today, the search continues. Satellites scan remote valleys. Ground radar probes ancient ruins. Teams of archaeologists sift through dust in forgotten caves. Each search brings new ideas, a brief moment of hope, and then disappointment. The ark remains like a shadow hidden in the dark. Some believe it waits in a cave on Mount Nebo, hidden by the prophet Jeremiah before the city fell. Others look to tunnels under the Temple Mount, where Templar knights might have stashed their greatest prize. Ethiopian tradition insists it is in Axum, guarded by a single monk who will never leave its side. Other theories point to Ireland, Japan, Oak Island, or even the Grand Canyon. The truth might be far simpler and much deeper than any treasure hunt. Perhaps the real value of the ark was never the gold, but what it stood for. Our desperate hunger to touch the divine, to touch the infinite in our finite world. Every ancient culture has built sacred objects. Every faith has crafted boxes for the holy. But none have captured our minds quite like this golden chest that once held the law of God. Tonight we go back to the very beginning, to a mountain of fire and smoke, to a man who spoke with God face to face, to the moment heaven touched earth and gave us the blueprint for a throne fit for God. The story of the Ark belongs to everyone, a tale of faith and power, of loss and longing, and our endless search to find the eternal. Close your eyes. Let the dry desert wind carry you back 3,500 years. The hot sand burns under your feet. The sun burns white against an endless horizon. Far off, thunder rumbles from a mountain under a perfectly clear sky. Something incredible is about to be born. A vessel of supreme power. The mountain shakes violently, not from an earthquake or a landslide, but from a presence far greater than human understanding. Mount Sinai burns with a fire that does not consume. Thick clouds hide the peak from view as lightning cracks the sky with every heartbeat. Thunderous echoes shake the very stones beneath you. On the mountain peak, Moses stands right before the Creator of the universe. Those 40 days feel like 40 long years. He eats nothing, drinks nothing, kept alive only by the presence of God. His face begins to glow so blindingly bright that his people will soon beg him to veil his face. But right now, in this moment outside of time, he takes in the words that will change history forever. The voice speaks of many things, rules to guide. A crowd that is still learning how to live in freedom. There are rituals to keep them holy in a broken world, rules for priests and feasts, and commands for justice and mercy. Then comes something entirely different. Moses leans in closer, his heart starting to race with excitement. "Tell them to build me a sanctuary," the voice says, gentle as warm rain, yet fierce as a winter storm. "I will live among them." The words echo in Moses' mind. The God who built the galaxies and shaped the smallest dust motes, who breathes life into the world and knows every star by name, wants to live right in the middle of runaway slaves wandering the desert, not to watch them from a distance, but to move in, to make his home right beside them. The instructions flow like music. Every detail matters. Every single measurement counts. This holy tent must be built to move. Designed for a nomadic camp with wooden beams, bronze and silver, and fine fabrics dyed in purple and scarlet. But at the very center, there will be something completely new. Build an ark out of acacia wood, the voice continues. Moses memorizes every word, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high, roughly 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 2 feet tall, big enough to hold the stone tablets, but small enough for men to carry. The wood must be plated with pure gold, inside and out. A gold molding will run all around the edge, and 4 gold rings will sit at its corners, with carrying poles of acacia wood overlaid in gold. These poles must never be removed. The ark must never be touched by human hands. Above the chest, the voice describes an even more incredible sight. A lid of pure gold, matching the exact length and width of the ark. 2 hammered gold angels, or cherubim, will stand on the lid, their wings stretching over it, facing each other and looking down. "I will meet you there," the voice promises. From above that gold lid, from between the 2 cherubim, I will give you all my commands for the people of Israel. Moses understands immediately. This is no ordinary box. The ark will be heaven's outpost on earth, the thin place where the eternal world meets our physical reality, the spot where God's voice breaks into human ears. But the voice is not done yet. The ark must hold 3 holy objects. First, the stone tablets carved by the finger of God with the 10 commandments. Second, a gold jar of manna, the bread from heaven that kept them alive in the desert. And third, Aaron's staff that budded, a sign of God's choice when people questioned his leaders. Each object tells a story. The tablets represent the covenant, the solemn promise between God and his people. The manna is a reminder of miraculous food in a barren land, bread falling daily from the empty sky. The staff shows absolute power over nature itself, a dead piece of wood suddenly bursting into bloom. Together they turn a wooden chest into a revelation. This gold box holds the very heart of Israel's journey, law, survival, and divine authority. It contains everything needed to sustain a nation born in the wilderness and marching toward a promised land. The details get even more specific. The carrying poles must stay in the rings, ready to move at a moment's notice. When they travel, the ark is wrapped first in a veil, then blue cloth, then tough animal skins, and finally another sheet of solid blue. Layer after layer to hide its glory from curious eyes. Moses listens closely as the voice sets the strict rules. Only the high priest can enter, only once a year, and only after intense purification. He must sprinkle sacrificial blood on the golden lid. Sweet incense smoke must fill the room. The bells on the hem of his robe will signal whether he is still alive inside the presence of absolute holiness. The cost of carelessness is instant death. You cannot treat what is sacred as if it is ordinary. Holiness demands fear. Power this concentrated is dangerous, like a lightning bolt trapped in a jar, or the sun wrapped in a piece of cloth. As the 40 days end, Moses holds the 2 stone tablets in his hands. Their weight surprises him, not the heaviness of the rock, but what they represent. These stones carry the voice of God carved into words that human eyes can actually read. But as he prepares to climb down the mountain, Moses knows that these stones are not enough on their own. They need a home worthy of their maker. They need the Ark of the Covenant, the gold throne where heaven will touch earth and speak directly to human hearts. The vision is burned into his mind. Every detail is crystal clear. Soon, very soon, craftsmen will turn this heavenly vision into physical reality. God's throne will be built by human hands guided by heaven, and the ancient world will never be the same again. The skilled builders and the sacred promise. Across the desert camp, the news spreads like wildfire. A massive crowd gathers around Moses as he reveals the divine plan. Their faces show deep awe and real fear. They had seen wonders before, the sea parting, water pouring from dry rock, bread falling from the sky. This is different, personal, and dangerous. God wants to live right in their midst. Moses asks for voluntary gifts, not just gold, though they will need plenty of that. They bring blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, leather from the sea, acacia wood, and pure olive oil. Spices and precious gemstones follow. The crowd's response completely overwhelms him. Families bring their most treasured possessions. Women offer jewelry passed down for generations. Men give tools and resources saved for a rainy day. The pile grows so fast that Moses has to order them to stop. Their hearts are overflowing with generosity. Former slaves who once owned nothing are now giving everything for this holy work. Their intense devotion almost frightens Moses. Do they really know what they are building? Do they grasp the weight of inviting God to live among them? But God has already chosen his master builder. Bezalel from the tribe of Judah steps up young but incredibly gifted. He has worked with wood and metal since he was a boy, seeing beautiful patterns and proportions others miss. Even more, Moses senses a spiritual depth in the young man, a vital quality needed for this sacred task. Standing beside Bezalel is Aholiab from the tribe of Dan. While Bezalel excels at metalwork and heavy construction, Aholiab is a master weaver and embroiderer. Together they make the perfect team. God has filled them with supernatural skill far beyond anything taught by human masters. Soon busy workshops crop up all around the sacred site. Fires roar day and night, melting down gold until it flows like warm honey. Heavy hammers ring out as precious metals take new shapes. The scent of burning acacia wood blends with spices and rich dyes. Women work the weaving looms, crafting fabrics of breathtaking beauty and precision. Meanwhile, Bezalel begins his work on the sacred ark. He selects flawless acacia wood free of knots or cracks. His hands are steady as he cuts and joins the timber, forming a chest exactly 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. The measurements matter. Every single measurement holds weight in God's eyes. The raw wood is beautiful, but it is only the foundation. Layer by layer, Bezalel overlays the wood with pure gold. First he hammers the inside sheets to flawless perfection. Then he coats the outside, covering every trace of wood. The chest gleams like captured sunlight, so bright it hurts the eyes to look directly at it. Next comes the golden molding, a trim of solid gold around the rim. This is no simple decoration, it is a sign of royalty. This chest will hold the covenant of the King of Kings. It deserves a crown worthy of what lies inside. Bezalel shapes the gold with deep reverence, knowing even angels will look upon his work. He casts 4 gold rings for the corners. Each ring must be flawless, sturdy enough to bear the ark's heavy weight across endless desert journeys. Through these rings go the carrying poles, gold-plated acacia wood that must never be removed. No human hand must ever touch the ark itself. Even holy things are dangerous in the wrong hands. Now comes the cover. It must be hammered from one solid sheet of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 wide. But the cherubim will test all his skills. 2 winged figures hammered from the same gold as the lid must face each other with wings spread wide. No living soul has ever seen a cherub. These are not the chubby angels of later paintings, but fierce guardians of God's holiness. Bezalel works from pure inspiration, his hands guided by wisdom beyond human reach. Faces begin to emerge from the raw gold, noble, fearsome, and magnificent. Their wings arch upward, creating a canopy of deep reverence. Yet the space between them will remain completely empty. No carved idol or painted image will represent God's presence. The Almighty needs no physical form, no likeness carved by human hands. That empty space speaks louder than any work of art. It is a mystery beyond words, sacred beyond human thought. As Bezalel works, quiet crowds gather to watch. They stand at a respectful distance, sensing the deep holiness of the work. Children whisper questions to their parents, while elders nod as each detail is finished. The ark is taking shape before their eyes, and with it something more. Their identity as a people chosen by heaven. Meanwhile, Aholiab oversees the protective coverings. Fine blue cloth, along with purple and scarlet threads woven into beautiful, complex patterns. When the ark moves, these cloths will shield its bright glory from common eyes. Multiple layers, beautiful on their own, but nothing compared to what they protect. For weeks, the work continues. Other craftsmen prepare the tabernacle structure, the portable sanctuary designed to hold the sacred ark. They craft golden lampstands, bronze altars, and heavy curtains woven with cherubim, along with a veil to separate the most holy place from the rest. Every detail must be perfect. God deserves nothing less. Finally, the great day arrives. The ark stands finished, gleaming under the harsh desert sun. Bezalel and Aholiab step back, exhausted but deeply satisfied. They built something unlike anything before. A throne for the unseen king, a home for the divine. Now Moses steps close, holding the heavy stone tablets in his hands. The law of God, carved by the finger of the Almighty, still carrying the heat of Sinai. With trembling hands, Moses gently lowers them into the gold chest. Next goes the jar of sweet manna. Aaron's budding staff will come later, but right now, God's law and provision lie side by side in their golden home. The heavy mercy seat slides into place, sighing like a soft breeze. The cherubim stretch their wings over the holy treasures. The Ark of the Covenant is ready to do its work, a bridge where heaven meets the dusty earth. But as Moses steps back, he knows the real test is still to come. The Ark is beautiful, perfect, and holy. Now it has to show its power. Soon it will lead an entire nation through harsh deserts, brutal wars, death triumphs, and bitter struggles. The golden throne is about to change everything. With fire cloud and thunder, the long march begins. A great moment has finally arrived. For several months, the ark has rested deep inside the newly built tabernacle, hidden behind heavy curtains of blue and purple. The people have slowly grown used to having it so close. The weight of God's holiness hangs over the camp like thick heat before a storm. But today, everything changes. Moses approaches the Holy of Holies with trembling hands. High priest robes feel heavier than usual. Each tiny gold bell along his hem chimes a quiet reminder of life and death before the Almighty. Behind the veil sits the silent, glowing ark. The wings of the cherubim cast long shadows in the dim lamplight. As he steps across the threshold, the world shifts. Blinding light erupts from the mercy seat, not like firelight or the fierce glare of the sun, but something totally different. The glory of God made visible, a brilliance that should blind him, yet somehow doesn't. This light speaks without words, communicating directly. Then a voice rises from between the golden angels, just as promised back on Sinai. Tell the people to prepare for travel. We move at sunrise. Moses backs away, his face glowing with captured glory. The small gold bells on his robe ring softly as he steps out of the sacred tent. No one asks what he saw. His face says it all. Their long journey is finally about to begin. Sleep is hard to find in the camp that night. Children whisper questions to their parents, asking where they are going. Adults wonder if they are truly ready for what lies ahead. For months, the ark was a comforting presence just sitting nearby. Now it becomes their guide into unknown lands, their shield against hidden dangers. Then the sun rises with uncanny precision. As the first ray of light hits the top of the tabernacle, a cloud begins to form. Not a normal morning mist. Instead, a thick white column rises straight out of the Holy of Holies, solid and bright. It climbs toward the sky like a beacon of smoke. The Levites know exactly what to do. Months of practice have made them flawless. They approach the tabernacle with slow, careful steps, their hands trembling with awe and fear. The ark must be covered before it can move. No ordinary eye can see its glory on the dusty road. First comes the heavy veil that always divides the sacred space. This thick curtain, embroidered with angels, blocks all light. They drape it over the ark with absolute care, ensuring every single inch of gold is hidden from sight. Next, they add a layer of blue cloth, then tough waterproof hides to shield it from the wind and heavy rain. Finally, they spread a beautiful cloth of solid blue over everything. The glowing throne vanishes beneath the layers, becoming a mysterious bundle. Heavy poles slide through the golden rings. 4 Levites from the family of Kohath take their places, 2 at each end. These young men were chosen for their strength and devotion. Their very lives now depend on perfect obedience. A single slip, a moment of carelessness, means instant death. As they lift the poles, the cloud above begins to drift. First, it drifts slowly to the east. Then it pulls forward with clear purpose. Drawn by an unseen force toward a destination only God knows, the sign is absolutely clear. The journey has begun. Moses cries out, "Rise up, Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. Let those who hate you flee before you." His voice echoes over the crowd, strong and confident. Trumpets blast, and the massive sea of people starts to move. This holy chest leads the way. Behind its hidden glory, 600,000 people pack up and fall into line. Families load up their donkeys and camels. The elderly lean heavy on their staffs. Children weave through the herds, thrilled by the adventure. But this is no ordinary road trip. The guiding cloud defies nature, moving straight against the desert wind, changing course without warning, rising and falling by divine will. When they want to rest, the cloud keeps moving. When they want to speed up, it stops dead in the empty wasteland. The first day goes by smoothly. The priests carrying the ark keep a steady pace, their eyes locked on the horizon ahead. The cloud guides them through valleys and over high ridges, following paths no map has ever recorded. Behind them, the greatest migration in history stretches across the earth. Strange things start happening almost immediately. Water springs up in places where no stream should ever run. The scorching sun cools down the moment the cloud passes overhead. Snakes and scorpions flee from their path as if driven by some unseen hand. The actual earth itself seems to bend to the authority of the ark. When night falls, the giant cloud halts over red desert sands. The Levites set down the ark with gentle care, their limbs aching from the long march. They raise the tabernacle around it with practiced ease. Curtains and wooden beams, gold and bronze fittings, all slide into their proper places as the twilight fades away. But as deep darkness falls, something incredible happens. That quiet cloud begins to glow. Soft at first, like moonlight through a thick mist, it grows brighter until it burns like a pillar of fire reaching the stars. The entire camp is bathed in its warm light. No torches or lamps are needed. God's own presence provides all the light they require. The fire burns without consuming. It gives comfort without heat and peace without explanation. Children fall asleep watching its gentle motion. The adults watch in silence, remembering old stories of burning bushes and holy encounters in the desert. All night long, the fiery pillar stands watch. No wild beast dares to come near the camp. No enemy attempts to attack. The ark rests safely inside its tent, wrapped in the visible glory of God Himself. For the first time since leaving Egypt, the people sleep deeply in the wild. Dawn arrives, and the fire shifts back into its daytime form. Pale and mysterious, it hangs above the holy tent like a great flag of heavenly protection. The people wake up to a brand new reality. They are no longer refugees or wanderers. They are now the army of God, marching behind His own heavenly banner. This journey will drag on for 40 years, across harsh deserts, rugged mountains, deep rivers, and through hostile lands. The ark will guide them through triumphs and disasters, through seasons of faith and dark moments of rebellion. Many who started this walk will die in the sands. Others will live to see the promised land. But today, on this morning of fresh beginnings, anything seems possible. The God who split the sea and rained down bread will be their guide and shield. The Ark of the Covenant will lead them home, one step at a time. Fast forward 40 years, and those great walls of Jericho loom ahead. The generation that remembered Egyptian slavery has died in the desert. They are replaced by children who know only freedom and the Holy Ark. Moses has blessed them for the very last time, climbing high into the mountains to die alone with God. Now Joshua stands where his master once stood, feeling the heavy weight of leadership and divine calling. The Jordan River blocks their path to the Promised Land. Spring floods have turned it into a rushing torrent that is impossible to cross. But the Ark was never bound by human limits. Joshua orders the priests carrying the sacred chest to march right up to the water's edge. Their feet touch the muddy bank. The river keeps roaring toward the Dead Sea, showing no signs of stopping. Step by step, they press deeper. The cold water swirls around their ankles, then reaches up to their knees. Faith battles fear with every single step forward. Then the impossible happens. The rushing water suddenly stops. Far upstream, the Jordan piles up as if blocked by some invisible wall. Downstream, the riverbed quickly empties, leaving nothing but mud and stones. A dry path opens right through the water. Dry land appears where currents were raging, and fish swam just moments ago. The priests carrying the ark walk out to the middle of the empty riverbed and stand still. Behind them, 600,000 people cross on dry ground, families, livestock, and soldiers. They all stream past, flanked by walls of water held back by the power of God. The ark waits patiently until every last person is safe. Only then do the priests step forward. The moment their feet touch the western bank, the Jordan roars back to life. The torrent crashes back down, filling the dry channel and resuming its rush to the sea. The crossing is complete. After 40 long years of wandering, they have finally entered the Promised Land. But the country is not empty. Massive walled cities rise from the hills, each one a fortress built to last for generations. The first and greatest obstacle is Jericho. It is ancient beyond memory, incredibly wealthy, and defended by massive walls that have never fallen to any enemy. Jericho's walls rise 40 feet into the hot desert sky. The outer wall is 6 feet thick, with 15 feet of open space behind it. Then comes the inner wall, 12 feet thick and even taller than the first. Houses are actually built right into the gap between them, forming a double barrier that has protected the city for centuries. From high on those battlements, the people of Jericho watch Israel's army approach. They have heard all the stories, the plagues of Egypt, the split sea, water from dry rock, and bread from heaven. Fear hangs heavy over the city. Yet they put their trust in high stone, thick brick, and massive gates. They trust in the simple fact that Jericho has never fallen. Joshua studies the great fortress and receives his orders straight from God. No siege engines, no scaling ladders, no battering rams. This battle plan breaks every single rule of ancient warfare. It looks like madness. Or maybe it is the most brilliant plan ever conceived. The march begins at dawn. 7 priests carry 7 trumpets made of ram's horns. Right behind them, the Levites carry the golden ark of the covenant. The armed men of Israel follow close behind their bronze weapons, gleaming in the morning sun. They circle the city once in complete silence. Only the sound of their footsteps betrays them, thousands of sandals kicking up dust along the ancient dirt road. The horns remain silent. No battle cry rises from the ranks. Even the children watch without making a sound. Up on the walls, the defenders grow restless. They expected battering rams and dirt ramps. This silent march feels far more terrifying than a normal siege. Something holy is moving with the enemy. The gold chest glows like the midday sun. God's power radiates from it. The circle is complete, and the Israelites march back to camp. No explanations, no demands for surrender. They simply walk away, leaving Jericho's guards to wonder what tomorrow will bring. The second day is exactly the same. The quiet march, the shining ark, the terrified eyes on the wall. Day 3 follows the same routine. By the fourth day, the strange ritual starts to feel almost normal. The sentries on the walls of Jericho get sloppy. Whatever the Israelites are planning, it seems harmless enough. But on day 7, everything changes. The march starts before dawn, much earlier than before. This time they circle the city 7 times. Every turn around the walls tightens the tension like a drawn bowstring. The ark leads them round and round, growing more imposing with every single loop. On the 7th lap, Joshua raises his voice for the first time in a week. "For the Lord has given you the city." His words roll across the plain like thunder from a clear blue sky. The answer is instant and deafening. 600,000 voices rise in a massive battle cry that shakes the air. The ram's horns blast their triumphant note. The noise builds and builds until it seems to shake the ground itself, roaring from the sky and the dirt beneath their feet. The walls of Jericho shake. Ancient stone foundations laid back when the world was young begin to crack. Mortar turns to dust. Massive blocks shift in their beds. The impossible is happening before thousands of terrified eyes. With a roar like splitting mountains, the walls fail. 40 feet of solid stone and brick crash inward, crushing houses and choking the streets with rubble. The outer wall falls toward the town, and the inner wall follows. Within seconds, centuries of careful engineering turn into piles of broken rock. Only a single section remains, standing a small piece of wall where a red cord hangs. Rahab the innkeeper had hidden Joshua's spies and saved her entire family. Her piece of the wall stands firm while everything else crumbles to dust. Israelite soldiers rush through the gaps where the massive gates once stood. The fight is quick and brutal. Jericho's guards, stunned by the miraculous collapse, barely fight back. By evening, the ancient city is in ruins. Its treasures are offered to the Lord who tore down those walls. Only the ark knows the secret. Only the gold chest understands how heaven intervened. It carried God's presence around the walls of Jericho, a presence that shook the very foundations of the earth. What human armies could never do, faith accomplished in just 7 days. News of the victory echoes across Canaan. Every fortified city trembles at the news. Israel marches from victory to victory, but they remember which weapon won their greatest battle. Not sword or spear, not tactics or raw courage, but the Ark of the Covenant, carrying heaven's power into war. Walls that stood for centuries fell in an instant. A stronghold that never surrendered became dust at the sound of a shout. And through it all, God's golden throne moved forward, ready for whatever battles lay ahead. A holy engine of war. The conquest of Canaan sweeps like wildfire across the land. City after city falls before the advancing Israelite army, and behind every single victory is the Ark of the Covenant. What started at Jericho becomes a pattern repeated all across the Promised Land. The golden chest is no longer just a sacred relic. It has become a weapon of holy war. But at Ai, overconfidence brings defeat. Joshua's men run in terror, leaving 36 soldiers dead on the field. The camp mourns in darkness until Joshua uncovers the truth. Achan had stolen treasures from Jericho, breaking God's strict command. Once the sin is cleared, the ark leads them back to Ai. This time, victory is swift and complete. The Gibeonites hear the news and choose trickery over destruction. They dress as travelers from a far-off land. Their bread is moldy, their wineskins torn and old. "We heard of your God and his wonders," they tell Joshua. "Make a treaty with us." The lie works until it is too late. By the time Israel learns the truth, they are bound by oath to protect Gibeon from its enemies. And those enemies do not wait long. 5 Amorite kings unite against Gibeon, their armies surrounding the city like a pack of wolves. The Gibeonites send frantic messengers to Joshua. "Come quickly, save your servants. All the Amorite kings have joined forces against us." Joshua marches through the blackness of night, the ark leading his fastest soldiers. Dawn finds them in position, right above the enemy camp. The attack comes without warning. Israel's warriors pour down the hillside like a terrifying landslide of bronze and iron. But this battle will be remembered for something far beyond military strategy. As the Amorites flee in terror, Joshua feels a divine fire burning in his chest. The enemy is escaping. Nightfall will give them cover. The victory will be half done unless the heavens intervene. He raises his voice to the sky, crying out words that will echo through history. Sun stands still over Gibeon. Moons stop over the valley of Ajalon. The universe freezes. The sun hangs frozen in the middle of the sky like a gold disc pinned to blue cloth. The moon stands perfectly still over the valley. For nearly a whole day, 24 hours, the heavens obey a mortal voice speaking with divine authority. Daylight stretches into the impossible. This longest day in history brings the most complete victory Israel has ever known. Great hailstones rain down from a cloudless sky. Each stone is heavy enough to crush a man's skull. More Amorites die from heaven's ice than from Israel's swords. The 5 kings hide inside a cave at Makkedah, but Joshua's men drag them out like trapped beasts. Their cities burn, their armies scatter into the wind. The southern coalition crumbles in a single day that lasted as long as 2. The news spreads through Canaan like a plague through crowded streets. These Israelites do not just fight with human weapons, they command the sun and the moon. They call down ice from clear skies. Their golden ark carries a power that mocks the rules of normal warfare. King Jabin of Hazor gathers the largest alliance yet. Kings from the northern hills and the coast merge their massive armies. Iron chariots, the ancient world's tanks, gather in numbers too high to count. Horses and riders fill the valleys like locusts in a plague. But the ark had already faced Pharaoh's chariots at the Red Sea. Iron wheels and bronze spears cannot terrify the throne of God. Joshua strikes without warning by the waters of Merom. The enemy alliance, massive as it is, melts before Israel's advance like winter snow in summer. Their chariot advantage vanishes on the rough, broken ground. Horses stumble in the rocks. Iron wheels get snagged on roots and stones. Joshua hamstrings the captured horses and burns their chariots. These weapons of human pride become funeral pyres for the men who rode them. City after city opens its gates or watches them get smashed down. The ark leads Israel's army through lands stained red with blood. Columns of refugees flee toward distant borders. Entire populations abandon their homes rather than face the terrifying golden chest and the God who sits between the cherubim. Yet not every victory is won through bloodshed. Often the mere presence of the ark is enough to shatter enemy resolve. Entire armies run at the first sight of its gleaming wood. Kings offer tribute and surrender rather than risk divine fury. The fame of Israel's God travels faster than their armies can march. Some cities choose total destruction over surrender. Their kings prefer death to living under foreign rule. The ark shows no mercy to such defiance. Walls crumble at its approach. Defenders tremble at the sound of Hebrew war cries. Ancient bloodlines end in a single afternoon of ruin. The holy and the horrific merge in ways that will disturb future generations. The very same ark carrying the law against murder now leads armies in wars of total destruction. The mercy seat that offers pardon to the penitent shows absolutely no pity to the stubborn. Divine love and divine wrath prove to be two faces of the exact same power. Children grow up in Israel knowing that their God fights for them. They learn to see the Ark not just as a holy relic, but as their ultimate weapon. Enemies might have greater numbers, better weapons, and veteran soldiers, but Israel has the presence of God marching before them. The conquest takes 7 years. 7 long years of constant war, burned cities, and displaced families. When the fighting finally stops, the Promised Land lies firmly under Israel's control, from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south. The Ark has led them to total victory, but victory carries its own heavy cost. A generation of soldiers has learned to connect the presence of God with battlefield triumph. The gold chest that once held only holy law and food now carries the weight of countless battles of shattered enemies and ruined cities. The God of peace has revealed himself as a God of war. The Ark now rests inside the tabernacle at Shiloh, its wandering years over for now. But the people remember its power. They know what wonders it can perform, what victories it can secure. In the years to come, that knowledge will prove to be a double-edged sword. Power, even divine power, can be a dangerous thing in human hands. The cost of disrespect is high. The conquest is over, but peace brings its own dangers. With no enemies left to fight and no cities to conquer, Israel begins to forget the lessons they learned in the wilderness. The Ark of the Covenant sat quiet in the Shiloh tabernacle. Travelers and priests visited, but no army marched it into battle. Familiarity bred a dangerous casualness toward the holy. Generations slipped away. Children who never saw the Jordan River part grew into adults who took the Ark for granted. The gold chest became just another piece of furniture, a tourist stop for foreign travelers, a point of national pride but stripped of daily reverence. Stories of Jericho falling and the sun standing still felt like ancient myths, not real history. This drift set the stage for disaster. During a celebration at Shiloh, they loaded the Ark onto a new cart to bring it back to its resting place. The young oxen pulling the wagon were skittish. The trail was rough, full of jagged rocks and deep ruts. As the crowd wound through the high country, disaster struck. The wheels hit a deep, sudden rut in the road. The Ark lurched sideways, tilting dangerously close to the edge. Gold flashed in the bright sunlight as the holy chest began to slip. In seconds, it would crash to the hard ground, spilling its sacred treasures everywhere. Uzzah walked right beside the wagon, close enough to reach out. He was a good man, devoted and sincere, a Levite tasked with guarding the Ark. His reflexes were sharp. His intentions were entirely pure. Without thinking, he lunged to steady the golden chest with his bare hand. The very moment his skin touched the holy gold, a flash of lightning split the blue sky. Uzzah crumpled to the dirt as if hit by an invisible hammer. He shuddered once, then lay still. Vapor rose from his clothes. The smell of scorched flesh mingled with incense and wild summer grass. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. The oxen stopped dead in their tracks, sensing a terrifying presence in the air. People who were laughing and singing a moment ago stood frozen in fear. The Ark sat perfectly balanced on the cart, gleaming under the hot sun. King David arrived within the hour, his face pale with shock and sudden anger. He had planned the parade, chosen the men, and approved the cart. Now one of his finest servants lay dead in the dust, struck down for trying to protect the object he served. David cried out, "How can I bring the Ark to Jerusalem now? If this is what happens to a loyal servant with a pure heart, what hope is there for the rest of us?" His voice cracked. The dream of bringing the throne of God to his new capital crumbled in the dirt next to the cooling body of Uzzah. The king's anger burned hot but fast. As the shock faded, a cold realization began to take hold. The law was clear from the start. The Ark was never to be touched. Levites had to carry it on their shoulders using wooden poles, never on carts, never by oxen, never touched directly, no matter how pure the motive. in his rush to help Uzzah, forgot the law. Good intentions could not bypass divine commands carved in stone and sealed in blood. The sacred operates on different laws than human morality. What seems sensible to us can be an offense to the holiness of God. Fear swept through Israel like a wildfire. If devoted, faithful Uzzah could die for a single mistake, who among them was safe? The God who had been a protective shield during the conquest now revealed himself as a consuming fire. David called off the march. The ark would go no further until they figured out what went wrong and how to fix it. But where could it stay? Who would dare house such a dangerous holy presence in their own home? Obed-Edom the Gittite stepped forward. A foreigner by birth, but an Israelite by choice. He offered his home as a temporary shelter for the chest. His family trembled at the idea. His neighbors whispered that he had lost his mind. But Obed-Edom had wrestled with the meaning of Uzzah's death, and he reached a very different conclusion. "The ark is not evil," he told his terrified family. "It is holy, and there is a massive difference. Evil wants to destroy. Holiness simply demands respect. If we treat it with absolute reverence, it will bring us blessings, not tragedy." The ark arrived at his house, carried on the shoulders of the Levites, just as the law required. No carts, no shortcuts, no human innovations. The golden chest entered his courtyard like a visiting king, magnificent and terrifying, and completely beyond human understanding. 3 months passed. Slowly, carefully, the family learned to live alongside this raw holiness. They woke early to pray. They kept themselves ritually clean. They spoke in quiet whispers near the room where the ark rested. Every single day became a lesson in deliberate reverence. The blessings began quietly. Obed-Edom's crops grew taller than those of his neighbors, and his livestock multiplied at an incredible rate. His children thrived, while sickness struck nearby homes. His business prospered, far exceeding his wildest hopes. Word spread quickly that the house of the foreigner had become a place of profound divine favor. David heard the news and wrestled with a mix of emotions. Relief that the favor of God still flowed through the sacred ark. David felt a sharp envy. A foreigner was enjoying the blessings the king had been too afraid to seek. He wanted that favor for Jerusalem and his family. Yet most of all, David learned a hard lesson. The ark was no magic charm to be moved around for human convenience. It was the dwelling place of the living God, and he demanded obedience. Power of this scale required absolute caution, reverent distance, and strict obedience to his law. Once again, the king began to plan, but this time there would be no shortcuts, no new carts, and no relying on human cleverness over the word of God. When the ark finally entered Jerusalem, it would travel exactly as commanded, carried on Levite shoulders, preceded by sacrifices, and surrounded by sacred song. The death of Uzzah was not random cruelty, but a heavy lesson. The sacred cannot be treated as ordinary. The holy demands reverence. Those who approach the Almighty must do so on the terms of heaven, never their own. Good intentions are not enough. Sincerity cannot replace obedience. 3 months after the tragedy, David was ready to try again. But this time, every single detail would follow the ancient law. The ark would move as heaven intended, carried by men who understood both its power and their own limits. The price of irreverence had been paid. That lesson would never be forgotten. The ark was captured. The unthinkable had happened. For the first time since Moses descended Mount Sinai, the Ark of the Covenant lay in enemy hands. The golden throne of God was now trapped inside a Philistine temple, surrounded by pagan idols and foreign tongues. Israel wept as if the sun had fallen from the sky. It was a disaster born of sheer national pride. Samuel the prophet grew old. His sons were corrupt, so the people demanded a king like the nations around them. Saul took the throne with great fanfare, but his reign brought more chaos than peace. The Philistines pushed hard against the borders, their advanced iron weapons giving them a deadly edge over bronze and stone. At Aphek, two armies faced off across a valley that had tasted blood many times before. The Philistines held the high ground, their ranks disciplined and weapons sharp. The forces of Israel looked like a ragtag militia by comparison. They were mostly farmers, led by men who only remembered better days. From the start, the battle went horribly wrong for Israel. A retreat became a panic when Philistine chariots broke through their lines. 4,000 men fell in the dust, their bodies scattered across the field like broken toys. The survivors stumbled back to camp, tasting the bitter ash of defeat. The elders gathered in a panic as the sunset stained the sky blood red. "Why did the Lord let us fail today?" they asked each other, their voices hollow with grief. They were, after all, the chosen people of God. Victory should have been guaranteed. Something had gone terribly wrong. Then someone whispered the fateful idea, "Let us bring the ark from Shiloh. When it is among us, it will save us from our enemies." Heads nodded in agreement around the fire. Of course, the ark had never failed them before. Its presence would turn defeat into victory just as it had at Jericho. Messengers ran through the dark to Shiloh, where the ark rested in its ancient sanctuary. Hophni and Phinehas, the corrupt sons of Eli the priest, agreed to accompany the sacred chest to the front. They saw an easy path to glory, linking their names to a guaranteed victory. The ark arrived at dawn, carried on the shoulders of the Levites as the law required. Yet something felt different this time. That usual sense of a divine presence seemed somehow faded. The golden cherubim looked almost sorrowful in the morning light. Holy power still lingered around the sacred chest, but it felt distant, hesitant, held back by some invisible barrier. When the soldiers saw the ark enter the camp, they raised a shout that shook the earth. The God of Israel had come to fight for them. Cheers erupted from thousands of throats as weapons flashed in the sun. Defeat turned to fierce confidence in a single heartbeat. The Philistines heard the roar and sent out spies to investigate. When they learned the ark had arrived, terror rippled through the enemy lines. They knew the stories: the plagues of Egypt, the divided sea, and the collapsed walls of Jericho. This golden chest had crushed armies and shattered kingdoms. "Woe to us," cried the Philistine leaders. "Who can save us from the hands of these mighty gods?" These are the same gods who struck the Egyptians with plagues in the wilderness. "Be strong and fight like men, or you will become slaves to the Hebrews." Terror turned into desperate, frantic bravery. The Philistines knew defeat meant total destruction. It was far better to die fighting than to live in chains. They drew up their battle lines with the cold precision of men who had nothing left to lose. The battle began with screaming trumpets and war cries. Israel marched directly behind the ark, confident that divine power would scatter their enemies like chaff in the wind. The golden chest shone at the very center of their ranks, carried by priests who fully expected to see another miracle. But no miracle came. Philistine spears found their marks. Iron swords pierced through bronze shields. The disciplined enemy ranks held firm, while the lines of Israel began to buckle. What should have been an easy victory quickly turned into a desperate struggle. Hour by hour, the tide of battle turned hard against God's chosen people. The presence of the ark offered no protection. Men fell dead right before the sacred chest. Spears and arrows tore through the air, an air that should have been holy. The unthinkable was happening. Israel was losing despite having the ark. Panic spread as soldiers realized their greatest weapon was failing them. If the ark could not save them, nothing could. A slow retreat quickly became a chaotic, wild rout. Men threw down weapons and fled. Amid the chaos, disaster struck: the sacred ark. The Levites carrying the ark stumbled and fell. Philistine soldiers surrounded it before anyone could react. Hophni and Phinehas died trying to defend it, their wicked lives ending in useless heroism. Hands that had never touched anything holy lifted the Ark of the Covenant. Foreign soldiers carried it away like common plunder, their voices raised in songs of victory. The impossible had happened. God's throne had been captured by pagans. A survivor reached Shiloh before sunset, his clothes torn and dust on his head. He found Eli the priest waiting by the gate, his blind eyes staring down the road. At 98 years old, Eli had waited there all day, his heart heavy with dread. "What happened, my son?" the old priest asked, though he already knew from the messenger's appearance that the news would be terrible. "Israel has fled before the Philistines," the man gasped. "There has been a massive slaughter among the people. Your 2 sons are dead, and God's ark has been captured." Those final words hit Eli like a physical blow. He fell backward off his chair, breaking his neck when he hit the ground. The grief of knowing the ark was gone killed him more surely than any weapon. Across Israel, the news spread like a plague. The ark was gone. God's throne was in enemy hands. The very symbol of God's presence was now a trophy in a pagan temple. How could this even be possible? How could the Almighty allow His own throne to be captured? Some blamed Hophni and Phinehas for their corruption. Others pointed to Saul's disobedience or the people's demand for a king. A few whispered that God had abandoned them, completely disgusted by their unfaithfulness. But the truth was simpler and far more terrifying. They had treated the ark like a magic charm instead of the home of the Most High. They assumed God's power would work automatically, regardless of their own faith or obedience. They learned too late that God's presence cannot be controlled on demand. Across Philistine territory, celebrations erupted in every city. They had done the impossible, capturing the throne of Israel's God. Surely this proved their own gods were stronger. Surely this meant the end of Israel's power forever. But the Philistines were about to learn something Israel had forgotten. The Ark of the Covenant served only one master, and that master was not pleased with his new quarters. Dagon falls. The Ark of the Covenant sits in Dagon's temple at Ashdod, surrounded by sweet incense and the boasting of Philistine priests. The golden chest gleams under the flickering lamplight, its cherubim wings casting shadows on stone walls carved with half-fish gods. For the first time in its history, the Almighty's throne sat inside a pagan temple. Dagon towered over the captured prize, a massive statue of polished stone, half man, half fish. The old god brought fertility and wealth to his worshippers. Offerings of grain and oil surrounded his pedestal. Golden bowls reflected the lamplight from alcoves in the walls. This was Dagon's home, his territory, his seat of power among the Philistines. The priests congratulated themselves on their triumph. Placing the captured ark before their god sent a clear message. Dagon had defeated Israel's God in open battle. The golden chest stood as proof of Philistine power, a trophy from their victory at Aphek. Night fell over Ashdod with an eerie stillness. No wind stirred the palms, no insects made a sound in the dark. Even the sea seemed quieter than usual, its waves lapping gently against the shore instead of crashing. The city slept peacefully, dreaming of endless victories and divine favor. But inside the temple, something stirred. The ark sat still in its golden beauty, yet power radiated from between the cherubim like heat from a furnace. Ancient forces awoke older than human history. The voice that spoke from Sinai's peak began to assert itself in this foreign temple. Morning came, and with it the temple singing. The first priest to enter for morning prayers found Dagon face down on the ground. His massive body had somehow fallen off its pedestal. The statue lay flat before the ark, like a worshipper bowing to a greater god. Arms that took 20 men to lift now lay pressed against the cold floor in surrender. Panic swept through the priests. How could this have happened? Dagon weighed several tons. His base was carved from a single block of stone. No human strength could have moved him in the night. Yet here he was, fallen before the golden throne of Israel's God. The priests whispered anxiously among themselves. Some blamed a tremor, though no one felt the earth shake. Others suspected saboteurs, even though guards watched the temple gates all night. A few whispered that Israel's captive God might still hold some power. But practical panic soon pushed quiet theology aside. They had to get Dagon back on his pedestal before the city woke up. "Bring the ropes and pulleys." Dozens of sweaty men strained against the dead weight, slowly hauling the fallen god back onto his platform. By noon, everything looked normal. The priests kept quiet, telling the city rulers absolutely nothing. Why spread panic over what might have just been a strange accident? Surely the night's event was just a weird coincidence. Now Dagon stood proud again, the master of his sanctuary and protector of Philistine power. But the next dawn brought absolute terror. Dagon was down again, and this time it was far worse than a simple fall. The stone head of the idol lay severed near the ark. Both of his hands had snapped off, rolling toward the threshold. Only a limbless stone torso remained on the pedestal, a total mockery of his power. Dark fluid stained the stone floor, though no living thing was hurt. The sharp smell of blood mingled with frankincense and sweet myrrh. Something had died inside this holy room, though no one knew what. The high priest walked in to find his subordinates weeping. Some beat their chests in grief. Others hid their faces in sheer shame. Their god had not merely fallen, he had been mutilated, dismembered, ruined. The message was clear. Dagon had been executed inside his own temple. Whispers quickly spread through Ashdod, despite efforts to hide the truth. Angry crowds gathered outside the temple, demanding to see. When they saw their ruined god, sheer panic gripped the streets. Their protector was in pieces. Their ancient deity had been humiliated by a captured trophy. But the midnight violence in the temple was only the beginning. As the morning sun climbed over the city, a strange plague began to unfold. A man scratched nervously at his groin, finding raw, swollen tumors that were not there yesterday. A woman felt hot lumps under her arms that throbbed with every heartbeat. By afternoon, hundreds of people showed the exact same symptoms. Ugly, burning boils erupted on bodies all over town. The swellings grew larger by the hour, making it painful to walk, sit, or even lie down. Children screamed while helpless parents wept. Adults writhed in agony that no medicine could touch. The strange plague spread like wildfire through dry grass. Rich or poor, young or old, priest or merchant, the sickness spared no one. Entire families huddled together in shared misery. The city's doctors stood helpless before this unknown disease. As the days dragged on, the dark truth became obvious. The plague had started the morning after Dagon fell, and every night the torment grew worse. The ark was still sitting in their temple. Cause and effect were undeniable. Israel's God was punishing them for desecrating his throne. Rats swarmed out of the sewers and granaries in terrifying numbers. They flooded the streets in broad daylight, their squeals echoing for blocks. They invaded homes and markets, chewing through food supplies and spreading absolute terror. This plague of rodents matched the physical agony perfectly, as if heaven and earth had turned against Ashdod. The city's lords called an emergency council, their own bodies covered in the agonizing, throbbing boils. They agreed, we cannot keep the Ark of Israel's God here. His hand is heavy on us and on Dagon. But where could they send it? The answer seemed simple. Let another Philistine city deal with this cursed box. Gath agreed to take the ark, eager to claim such a prized trophy, despite the warnings of Ashdod. The golden chest was carted off to Gath behind a team of oxen, the drivers keeping their distance. As soon as it passed through Gath's gates, the sickness in Ashdod began to fade. The boils shrank, and the rats vanished. Relief washed over the city like cool water on a fever. But the relief in Gath was short-lived. Within days, their own people began suffering from the very same horrors. Agonizing tumors broke out across the city. Rats poured from every dark corner. The curse of the ark had followed it. The lords of Gath did not waste any time passing the problem along. Ekron watched the unwanted prize arrive with growing dread. They already knew what had happened to the other cities. They knew exactly what was coming. Yet political duty forced them to take the ark instead of risking war with their allies. As they feared the plague in Ekron was even worse, the boils grew larger and more agonizing. Then death arrived, sweeping through the streets as the weak succumbed to the unbearable pain. The sacred chest had become a weapon of mass destruction, tormenting every city that tried to keep it. 7 painful months passed in a state of absolute terror. 5 major Philistine cities had learned the exact same lesson. The God of Israel was not defeated only temporarily, holding back. His ark left a trail of death and plague wherever his enemies took it. No foreign temple could hold his power. No false god could stand before his presence. The desperate Philistine lords gathered once more in a panic. Returning the ark to Israel was their only choice. But how could they send this terrifying god back without admitting total and utter defeat? When the answer finally came, it was just as strange as everything else about this gold chest. For now the chest sat in the plague-struck streets of Ekron, its golden cherubim wings casting long shadows over its city. Learning that some victories cost far more than defeat, a return forced by raw fear. 7 months of horror convinced the Philistine rulers that keeping the ark meant watching their people die. Wherever the golden chest went, agonizing sickness followed like night follows day. Tumors, rats, and death. The same grim cycle repeated in every city where Israel's God set foot. They had to act before their entire land turned into a massive graveyard. In Gaza, the 5 lords gathered, their faces lined with pain. Each ruler carried the scars of heaven's anger, feverish swellings that made sleep impossible, and a relentless dread. They realized what Israel itself had forgotten. This God could not be managed or kept in a box. Achish of Gath spoke first, his voice raw from sleepless nights. He warned that every single day they kept the box, more of their people would die. Their own gods offered no protection, but sending the ark back was a political nightmare. How do you hand a stolen trophy back to your enemies without looking weak? How do you admit their god beat yours? The humiliation was unthinkable. Around the council table, priests and diviners stood with exhaustion etched on their faces. For months they had scanned animal guts, read the stars, and searched ancient texts for a way out. Their final plan came from absolute desperation and a new, terrifying respect. The chief priest warned them never to return it empty-handed. Send a guilt offering, he urged. Model 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, 1 for each of our 5 cities. Maybe this will appease Israel's God and lift his heavy hand from us. The bitter irony of his words hit home. Gold replicas of their own shame, crafted by their finest smiths. Every painful swelling molded in detail. Every diseased rat shaped with horrifying precision. Monuments to a God who shattered their pride. But doubts still lingered. How would they move this deadly cargo? What kind of cart would satisfy a God who struck down anyone touching his throne? The answer they found was a mix of desperate faith and clever human testing. Build a brand new cart, the priest told them. Take 2 nursing cows that have never worn a yoke. Hitch them to the cart, but shut their calves in the barn. If the cows march straight to Israel, ignoring their babies, then we know their God sent this plague. It was a test that appealed to desperate, broken men. A nursing cow will always stay near her calf. Tearing her away goes against every natural instinct she has. If they abandoned their calves to head toward enemy territory, it could only be God. They wasted no time. Blacksmiths worked through the night on the golden offerings. Each piece was a beautiful, tragic token of surrender. A new cart took shape in a Gaza workshop built from strong wood and fresh iron. Every detail was carefully weighed. This wagon would carry the most dangerous cargo in the ancient world. Finding the cows was the hard part. Herders searched through their stock for the perfect beasts, animals that had never worked with young calves and strong enough to pull the heavy load. When they found them, the calves were taken away and locked in a dark pen. Meanwhile, the ark arrived in Gaza under heavy guard, kept at a careful distance by its terrified handlers. The gold chest gleamed as beautiful and frightening as ever, its golden cherubim stretching their wings in silent watch. 7 months in captivity had not weakened its power, nor tamed its terrifying holiness. Loading the chest onto the cart required absolute precision. Nobody dared touch the holy wood directly. Using long poles and thick ropes, they guided it onto the flatbed. Beside it, they placed the gold offerings. 5 tumors, 5 rats, a bizarre tribute to an angry god. Men with trembling hands harnessed the cows. The beasts bellowed, calling out for their hungry calves, locked just out of reach. Their udders were heavy with milk, their maternal instinct screaming. They strained hard against the yoke toward their babies. Dawn broke, cold and bright as the strange cart stood ready. No driver held the reins. This was a test of pure divine will. From a safe distance, the Philistine lords watched their hearts hammering with absolute dread. This was the moment. The gates swung open, revealing the dirt road leading toward Beth Shemesh, the nearest Israelite town. Everything depended on what the beasts did next. The cows took their first heavy steps. Instead of turning back to their crying calves, they walked straight toward Israel. Their hooves clattered on the stones, pulling the heavy wagon forward with a resolve that defied nature itself. Gasps rippled through the watching crowd. The cows never wavered, never strayed from the impossible path. They marched like creatures possessed by a higher power, staring straight ahead at a land they had never seen. The 5 lords followed on foot, needing to see the end of this journey with their own eyes. It was a brutal lesson in power, and they had to witness it to the very end. Their future depended on knowing exactly what force they were dealing with. Mile after mile, the cows kept marching. They drank no water, touched no food, and never stopped for obstacles. At every fork in the road, they chose correctly, without any guide. When hills blocked their view, they pressed on, driven by an instinct no mortal animal possesses. The Philistine rulers exchanged heavy, knowing looks. No natural force could explain this. The God of Israel had surely caused their 7 months of pure agony. Their defeat was absolute, their humiliation complete. By midday, the stone walls of Beth Shemesh rose in the distance. Hebrew farmers worked the wheat fields completely unaware their most sacred treasure was coming up the Gaza road. The moment of return was finally here. The ark was coming home after its long, strange exile. Those beasts never faltered. They pulled their sacred cargo right through the city gates and stopped in the main plaza. Their supernatural task was done. They stood there, flanks heaving under the blistering midday sun. The Philistine lords turned back to their coastal cities, feeling a mix of relief and crushing defeat. They had rid themselves of a plague that nearly destroyed them. Yet, they had also bent the knee to their enemy's God. The trial was over. The verdict was undeniable. The Ark of the Covenant answered to only one king. And that king had called his throne back home using simple beasts and his enemies' own fears. With those events, Philistine dominance was over. A powerful new chapter in the story of Israel's God had just begun, marked by golden offerings and guided by the simple instinct of mother cows. But decades of quiet obscurity followed, leaving the golden chest in the shadows. 20 years slipped away like a quiet breeze. Kiriath-Jearim kept its secret safe, housing the ark in Abinadab's home up on a lonely hill. The man chosen to guard this holy object treated his duty with absolute reverence. His son Eleazar took up the holy task of guarding what once shook empires. Meanwhile, Israel went on with everyday life. Farmers tended their fields, parents sang their children to sleep. The ark sat in absolute silence, patient as stone, with no horns to mark its presence. No crowds gathered to marvel at its power. Memories of how it devastated the Philistines slowly faded from everyday minds. Yet those who knew never forgot. They spoke in quiet whispers about the chest that shattered false gods and brought terrible plagues. Parents passed these stories down to their children around evening fires. The ark became a legend, even though it sat just a few miles away. Distance turns real history into myth. Young men grew old without ever seeing it. Elders died, having never caught a glimpse of its gold. A whole generation grew up knowing the sacred chest only through quiet stories. The holy object felt as distant as stars that shine but never touch the earth. Samuel the prophet still traveled among the people. He knew exactly where the ark rested and sometimes climbed a hill to Kiriath-Jearim to speak quietly with Abinadab about the treasure under his care. The old priest here understood the sheer weight of his duty. Some blessings are simply too heavy for the public eye. The Philistines remembered too. Parents warned their children never to touch Israel's sacred things, and their priests taught a fearful respect for God from afar. That holy power lingered in their memories, like distant thunder leaving the air still trembling long after the storm had passed. But Israel grew restless. They wanted a king just like the nations around them. Samuel warned them that human rulers bring human suffering. Still, the people demanded a leader to march them into battle and make them a force to be feared. They forgot that their true strength lay quiet in a humble hilltop house. The ark just waited. It had no voice to speak, no hands to reach out. Yet its presence shaped the land like water carving stone, slow, steady, and relentless. The holy would not fade, even when pushed to the edges of daily life. The seasons turned, rains fell, and sun warmed the slope of Kiriath-Jearim. The ark endured as patient as the God residing between its golden figures. True power needs no stage, it just is. Those quiet years slipped past like pages in a closed book, but the story was still being written in the quiet. The ark held its secrets tight, waiting for the right moment to step back into the light. Power can sleep, but it never dies. Then came David, the warrior king. A shepherd boy confronting a giant. He carried 5 smooth stones in his bag, but only needed one. Goliath fell, and everything changed forever. David, the son of Jesse, stepped into the light of history with a sling in his hand and a song in his heart. The years rolled on. David ran from Saul's jealous rage, hiding in dark caves and gathering broken men to his side. Outcasts became mighty warriors under his command. He learned to lead not from a throne, but from shared survival. The harsh desert taught him lessons no palace ever could. Saul fell on Mount Gilboa. His sons died with him. The whole kingdom bled from wounds deeper than any sword could carve. Israel cracked like shattered stone. David wept for his brother Jonathan in words that still echo through time. Love and grief lived together in the new king's heart. The tribe of Judah crowned David in Hebron. For 7 years he ruled from the south, while the northern tribes clung to Saul's surviving son. Civil war soaked the land in blood. Brother fought brother until weariness finally brought them together. David's house grew stronger, while Saul's faded like morning mist. At last, all of Israel came to him. They poured holy oil over his head and placed the crown on his brow. At 30 years old, he became king of a united nation. At last, the young shepherd gripped the royal scepter. God's private promise to that anointed boy finally became real, watched by the heavens. David stared north toward Jerusalem. The Jebusite stronghold sat like a crown on its mountain, stubborn and undefeated. From the high walls, the locals mocked the new king. They yelled that even the blind and lame could keep him out. But David saw what others missed. He knew this city would be his, and the attack came from below. His soldiers crawled through the dark water shafts feeding the city. Like ghosts, they suddenly appeared inside the stone walls. Jerusalem fell not to heavy siege engines, but to pure grit and cunning. In a single night, David's city was born. Now he ruled from the heights. His kingdom stretched all the way from Dan to Beersheba. Victory followed victory as his armies crushed every rival. The Philistines, who once terrorized a land, fled before his sword. Peace spread across the country like oil smoothing over rough water. Yet a heavy weight pressed on the king's heart. Sitting in his grand cedar palace, he remembered the sacred ark of God resting in obscurity. The holy chest that once led Israel's armies now sat collecting dust on a lonely hill. How could God's throne remain neglected? And exiled David gathered his leaders, his eyes burning with intensity. He told them flat out, "We have forgotten our most sacred treasure. It is time to bring it home." The rugged warriors nodded, caught up in their king's burning passion. They had fought for cities and gold, but now they would march for something far holier. The massive plan began to take shape, piece by piece. 30,000 chosen men would march to Kiriath-Jearim. They would escort the ark to Jerusalem with singing and wild celebration. The nation would finally be complete when its earthly king and its heavenly Lord dwelt in the exact same city. David's heart raced with pure excitement. He had beaten enemies and united the tribes, but this would be his greatest moment, a victory won not with sword or spear, but with joy and deep awe. The ark was coming home, and Israel's glory would shine from Zion. But death waited on the road. The journey started like a festival, 30,000 people marching toward Kiriath-Jearim with songs in their hearts. David led the way, his face glowing with joy. Today, he was bringing the ark home. Today, Israel's glory would return to its rightful place. The very air felt charged with excitement. Abinadab opened his home to the king. 20 years of quiet, faithful keeping were finally over. His sons, Uzzah and Ahio, prepared the sacred cargo with trembling hands. They knew this golden chest was holier than any human life. They had cleaned around it, watched over it, and kept it from curious eyes. A new cart stood waiting, built especially for this sacred burden. The oxen were ready. Their heads were draped in flowers and fine fabrics. Everything had to be flawless for the ark's journey to Jerusalem. No detail was missed. No offering was too grand for the throne of God. The ark stepped out from the shadows into the bright dawn, its hidden power shining in the sun. Pure gold caught the morning light like trapped fire. The carved cherubim stretched their wings as if about to take flight. Even hardened soldiers gasped at the sight. Music filled the air. Harps sang, tambourines beat the rhythm, and flutes played sweet melodies. David himself led the procession. His royal robes swirled as he leaped and danced. Joy turned to movement. Movement turned to worship. The earth seemed to shake beneath their feet. The oxen began their slow march, the heavy cart rolling forward, carrying its precious cargo toward destiny. Uzzah and Ahio walked right beside it, keeping their hands close to the gold. They knew its heavy weight, its balance, its priceless nature. No one else dared to step that close. The road ahead lay open like a ribbon of promise. Jerusalem was waiting just beyond the hills. Soon the ark would rest in David's city, and Israel would be complete. The crowd moved like a river of joy, carrying the holy relic to its new home. But the road had other plans. The oxen stumbled on the rough, uneven ground. The cart lurched sideways, the heavy gold sliding toward disaster. Uzzah saw the ark tilting, ready to fall. Instinct overtook fear. He reached out to steady the one thing that must never be touched. The moment stretched forever. Flesh met gold in a flash. Uzzah's fingers brushed the sacred surface, trying only to protect the treasure he had guarded for 20 long years. But some things are too holy for human hands, even hands driven by pure love. A sudden shock surged through Uzzah's body, not a visible fire, but something far deeper and more terrifying. The power dwelling between the cherubim met mortal skin. The guardian collapsed right beside the very thing he tried to save. His breath left him like a quiet sigh, and he never moved again. Silence swept over the crowd like a cold wave. The singing died instantly. Dancers froze mid-step. The ark sat on its tilted cart, shining in the sudden quiet. Death had struck among them fast and absolute as lightning. David stared down at Uzzah's lifeless body. The man who reached out to help now lay beyond all help. Deep terror replaced the king's joy. He had planned to bring a blessing to Jerusalem, but death had come instead. The sacred demands awe, and sometimes that awe costs more than anyone expects to pay. The festival turned into a funeral. Joy shattered into grief in a single heartbeat. The ark meant to bring glory to David's city had brought only questions and dread. Some blessings are simply too dangerous for eager hands, too holy for simple souls. David's grand strategy fell apart like sand. The road to Jerusalem lay ahead, but he could not walk it now, not with death fresh in his mind, not with the ark's terrifying power. The king who conquered cities was conquered by his own dread. He abandoned the road, fleeing back, leaving the ark at the house of Obed-Edom. The ark sat on its cart like a mystery wrapped in gold, too holy to touch, too sacred to ignore. Meanwhile, Uzzah's body grew cold in the shadow of the very thing he died trying to protect. The king who planned a celebration now faced a spiritual crisis. "I cannot bring this to my city," David told his commanders. His voice carried the weight of sudden realization. "Not now. Not until I understand what we are dealing with. The ark has shown its power swift and total. It is better to be safe than to risk more death." The convoy stopped barely 3 miles from the tragedy, right at the home of Obed-Edom the Gittite. He was a simple man living a quiet life. He opened his door to an incredible request. The king asked him, "Will you keep the ark for a while?" The man looked at the golden chest, then at his king, and agreed. Obed-Edom knew the stories. He knew what had happened to the Philistines. He had seen what happened to Uzzah only hours ago. Yet he accepted this dangerous honor with quiet dignity. Perhaps foreigners understand mystery better than those native to it. Perhaps distance breeds a deeper respect. The ark entered another humble home. No celebration marked its arrival, no crowds gathered to watch. Like an exiled king, it slipped back into the quiet shadows. But this time felt different. The air was thick with tension, like the quiet before a storm. David went back to Jerusalem with a heavy heart and a mind full of doubts. The city meant to welcome the ark now watched its king wrestle with fear. How could he serve a God whose power struck down those who loved him? How could he lead his people toward a presence that destroyed the faithful? Days became weeks. David sent messengers to watch Obed-Edom. He kept asking, "How is the man with the ark faring?" The reports that came back were strange and wonderful. The Gittite was thriving like a tree planted by fresh running water. Obed-Edom's fields produced crops beyond belief. His herds multiplied like stars in the night sky. His whole household grew strong and happy. Children laughed in his courtyard. Neighbors came to him for wisdom. Everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. This blessing spread far beyond just one man. The whole neighborhood felt the change. Even the local springs ran deeper and cleaner. Crops overflowed with abundance. Even the weather seemed kinder over Obed-Edom's land. The ark was bringing life just as swiftly as it had brought death. News reached David's palace like sunrise breaking over the hills. The very ark that killed Uzzah was now blessing Obed-Edom. The exact same power that brought death also brought abundant life. The king began to understand what he had missed before. Holiness demands respect, yet it rewards devotion. David sent more messengers. "Tell me everything he commanded." They returned with reports that sounded like ancient myths. Barren women conceived, sick animals healed, broken tools seemed to mend. The presence of the ark changed everything around it. 3 months passed like the seasons of a perfect year. Spring came early to Obed-Edom's land. Summer brought endless abundance. Autumn gave a harvest beyond all measure. The Gittite's home became a place of pilgrimage for people seeking hope. David's fear began to shift. The ark had not brought ruin to Obed-Edom. It brought blessing after blessing, like rain falling on dry ground. The king finally saw his mistake. He feared the ark's power instead of respecting its purpose. Terror and true reverence are very different things. The stories kept coming. Obed-Edom's wisdom grew alongside his wealth. His words carried weight among the people. His advice helped his neighbors settle their bitter disputes. The ark's presence did not just bring material wealth, it brought wisdom, peace, and deep understanding. David made up his mind. The ark belonged in Jerusalem, but it had to arrive with proper honor. No more rushing. No more foolish assumptions. The holy must be handled with care, like a sword that cuts both ways. It can bless or curse, depending on the heart that draws near. Plans began forming in the king's mind. This time would be different. This time he would follow the ancient rules and sacred rituals. The ark would enter Jerusalem, not as a trophy of war, but as what it truly was, the throne of the living God. Seeking victory, David studied the ancient scriptures by the flicker of firelight. Moses' words leaped from the parchment like living fire. The ark must be carried on Levites' shoulders, not on wooden wheels. Gold and silver poles slid through the sacred rings. No carts, no oxen, no shortcuts. Some things demand absolute care. The old way was the only way. The king summoned priests and Levites from every corner of the land. "Come to Jerusalem," his messengers declared. "Prepare yourselves for sacred work." They gathered like small streams pouring into a great river. Hundreds of men chosen by blood and duty gathered at the palace gates. Zadok the priest and Abiathar stood before David, their beards white with years of wisdom. Their hands were steady from decades of sacred service. "Teach me," David said simply. The shepherd boy who became king now became a student once again. Humility opened doors that pride had locked tight. The sacred preparations began like clockwork. Every detail matters when you approach the holy. The Levites purify themselves with water and offerings. They fast and pray, preparing their souls to carry the sacred burden. No one can bear the throne of God with dirty hands or a clouded mind. News spreads through Jerusalem like ripples on still water. The Ark is finally coming home, not with military triumph this time, but with deep reverence. The people notice the change in their king's approach. King David is still joyful, but this time it is tempered with holy fear. No massive army of 30,000 soldiers today. Instead, only chosen men take their places. Levites surround the sacred chest, while priests prepare incense and sacrifices. Music still plays, but it is now ordered according to ancient law. David leads the way to the house of Obed-Edom. Morning light catches the gleam of his crown and the pure white robes of the priests. This is no military parade, it is worship made visible. Heaven touches earth in the rhythm of marching sandals. At the house of Obed-Edom, the final preparations begin. The ark emerges into the daylight once more, but different hands carry it now. Levites trained from childhood lift the golden poles. The sacred weight rests on their shoulders like a mantle of responsibility. They take 6 steps, then stop. David has learned patience. A bull and a fattened calf are sacrificed. Blood spills onto stone altars while smoke rises toward heaven like visible prayers. Every 6 steps they stop to honor the God who dwells between the cherubim. The journey becomes a slow procession of devotion. Step by step, stop by stop, the ark moves closer to its home, and David's heart beats with deep, measured joy. This feels right. It honors the holy and the God who makes things holy. Sacred songs rise from trained voices and skilled musicians. Harps play harmonies older than kingdoms. Drums beat like steady heartbeats, and horns announce the approach of the invisible king. Yet beneath the joy runs a deep river of reverence that was missing before. David himself dances, but differently now. His movements show pure worship, not just celebration. Wearing a simple linen ephod, he is more than just a king. Right now, he is priest worshiper and the bridge between heaven and earth. The gates of Jerusalem come into view. The city waits like a bride. Crowds line the streets, but they keep a respectful distance. They have learned the terrible cost of treating the holy casually. Awe and fear mix on every watching face. The procession passes through the gate, its joy held within the boundaries of holy reverence. Children peek from behind their mothers' robes. Elders remember the stories their grandfathers used to tell. The ark is home, and Jerusalem will never be the same. David's tent is waiting in the place he prepared, simple but pure, holy but accessible. Here the ark will rest until Solomon builds something more permanent. But for now, a tent is enough. God's presence needs no palace, only clean hearts and reverent hands. The golden ark settles into its new home like a king taking his throne. The Levites step back. Incense burns on bronze altars. The work is done. The Ark of the Covenant rests in David's city. Israel is whole. Then comes Solomon's golden temple. David's mind burns with a vision that keeps him awake at night. He paces his palace floors, looking toward the tent where the ark rests. He tells Nathan the prophet that he lives in a cedar palace, while the ark of God sits in a tent. The thought bothers him like a thorn in his skin. Nathan responds with human logic. He tells the king to go ahead and do whatever is in his heart. He says the Lord is with him, but God's thoughts run on very different paths than human logic. That night, God's words come to Nathan like rain on dry ground. At dawn, the message is clear. David will not build a house for the Lord. He has shed too much blood. A warrior king who conquered nations cannot build a house for the God of peace. This truth cuts deep but clean, and yet God's rejection comes wrapped in a promise. His son will build the temple and enjoy peace on every border. David's vision will not die with him. It will grow in his successor's hands, like a winter seed waiting for the spring. David accepts this divine decision with a grace that surprises even himself. If he cannot build, he will prepare. The king who cannot swing the hammer will gather every single nail. His passion for God's house turns into preparation. Gold and silver pile up like mountains in the royal treasury. David now measures wealth not in conquered lands, but in building materials. Cedar from Lebanon, bronze from captured cities, and iron beyond measure. Precious stones catch the light like trapped stars. The king draws up designs on parchment with a builder's precision. Every dimension matters, and every detail must reflect divine glory. Though his hands will not build, his mind will design. The temple takes shape first in David's mind, then on scrolls to guide his son. Solomon takes the throne, with wisdom far beyond his years. The young king inherits not just a kingdom, but a sacred calling. The temple his father dreamed of will rise under his care. God's promise to David becomes Solomon's great responsibility. Construction begins like music carved in stone. Hiram of Tyre sends master craftsmen whose hands understand the language of beauty. Jewish stonecutters learn crafts their fathers never imagined. Step by step, the temple rises. Every block is chiseled to perfection before leaving the quarry. No hammers ring out on the holy mountain. No iron tool touches stone at the sacred site. Each block slips into place like pieces of a divine puzzle. The grand structure rises in a deep silence that speaks louder than any words. Reverence shapes every beam and stone. 7 years pass like quiet seasons in a perfect garden. The temple stands like a prayer made visible. Gold plates the cedar wood. Giant bronze pillars stretch up toward the sky. The holy place gleams with a glory that makes kings weep and prophets fall silent. Inside the inner sanctuary waits like a bride preparing for her wedding. This is where the ark will rest, not in a tent, but in a home worthy of its holiness. Cherubim carved from olive wood stretch their wings from wall to wall. Pure gold covers everything, turning this dark room into a mirror of heaven itself. Dedication day breaks like a bright dawn over the land. Solomon stands before the finished temple, his mind full of his father's dream finally realized. Sacrifices burn on the altars, holy songs rise from trained choirs. All of Israel gathers to watch the impossible come to life. The ark leaves David's tent for the very last time. Priests carry it with the exact same reverence they have practiced for 30 years. The golden chest that journeyed through wilderness and exile now approaches its permanent home. The long trek that began at Sinai finally ends on Mount Zion. The ark enters the most holy place like a king returning to his palace. The carrying poles slide through golden rings one last time. The sacred chest settles into the spot prepared for it since the world began. The long journey is finally over. The ark is home at last. Solomon dedicates the temple with words that will echo down through the ages. Even the highest heavens cannot contain you, he prays. How much less this house that I have built? The king who built this earthly house knows that no building can hold the infinite. Then a thick cloud fills the temple like visible glory. The priests cannot even stand to do their work, overwhelmed by the presence filling the room. Heaven has come down to live in the house Solomon built. And so the golden temple becomes the beating heart of Israel's worship. But behind the heavy veil lies a mystery deeper than the ocean. The Holy of Holies measures 30 cubits in every direction. It is a perfect cube built from human hands and divine blueprints. Here, darkness lives alongside light. Silence speaks much louder than any sound. Here, the infinite touches the edge of time. 2 massive cherubim guard the holy chamber, their wings stretching from wall to wall. Carved from olive wood and covered in beaten gold, they stand 15 cubits high, like guardians of the infinite. Their eyes look down to the spot where heaven touches earth, where the ark rests in quiet glory. The chest sits beneath those golden wings, like a throne waiting for its king. No chair or pedestal lifts it up. The golden chest sits directly on the stone floor, humble despite its immense value. Divine power needs no pedestal when it rests in its true home. The sacred always finds its own perfect balance. Light enters this room only through the high priest's torch. Windows have no place here. The sun that shines on the world outside cannot brighten this inner sanctuary. Only holy fire can burn in the presence of the one who lives in unapproachable light. The veil separating this room from the world hangs like a thin sheet between two realities. Blue, purple, and scarlet threads weave together patterns that tell stories older than kingdoms. Angels seem to move across the fabric, their wings spread in endless praise. No common eye can ever look past this barrier. Once a year, just one man enters here. The high priest approaches carrying blood and incense. His mind is prepared by fasting, his hands washed clean by holy water. Small bells hang from his robe, telling those outside he is still alive. Death comes quickly to anyone who treats the sacred with carelessness. The ancient ritual follows rules set by Moses himself. 7 times blood is sprinkled on the mercy seat. Sweet smoke rises like prayers made visible. The priest whispers words far too holy for common ears to hear, names too holy to speak aloud. Here the sins of Israel meet heaven's mercy head-on. The high priest's footsteps sound strange in this chamber. Echoes travel differently where heaven meets earth. Some say phantom choirs sing here when the room is completely empty. Others describe a silence so heavy it beats like a drum. The sacred space creates its own unique acoustics. The Ark holds treasures far greater than gold or precious gems. Inside lie the stone tablets Moses brought down from Mount Sinai. God's own finger carved those commandments into stone that will never decay. Alongside them sits a golden jar filled with holy manna, bread from heaven kept for generations who never knew the wilderness. Aaron's staff rests right beside those tablets, the wooden rod that bloomed with almonds when God chose Israel's priests. Dead wood coming to life speaks of a power that makes the impossible look easy. These sacred objects tell Israel's story in ways that mere words never could. The mercy seat seals these treasures like a lid on a precious chest. But this is no ordinary lid. Here the wings of the golden angels meet, and right between them rests the very presence of the Almighty. The throne of heaven touches the earth in this one holy spot. No one can see the mercy seat except the high priest on Atonement Day. Even he must approach shielded by sweet smoke of incense, thick enough to shield his eyes from a glory too bright for human sight. Some things are just too sacred to look at, too holy for words. Inside, the temperature never shifts. Neither summer heat nor winter cold can penetrate these thick stone walls. This holy place has its own atmosphere. It sits slightly outside of time and weather. The air of heaven drifts through the heavy curtain. When the high priest finally steps out, his face sometimes glows with a reflected light. Only one man stands there each year. He has witnessed what only consecrated eyes are allowed to see. The ordinary becomes extraordinary simply by standing next to the holy. The Holy of Holies waits in silent patience during the long months between his visits. The Ark keeps its secrets and guards its mysteries. It guards its treasures. Here beats the heart of Israel, pumping life to its people. In this room, hard questions find answers, and prayers find their home. The unseen feels almost visible, the infinite almost within reach. The Holy of Holies is heaven's footprint, where two worlds meet in golden silence. In this golden age, Israel shines like a jewel in the crown of nations. Solomon's wisdom draws travelers from the very ends of the earth. The Queen of Sheba arrives with camels loaded with spices and gold, but she leaves with treasures far greater than anything she brought. She saw wisdom in a man and glory in stone and cedar. The temple stands at the center of this golden age like the sun in the sky. Everything else revolves around this sacred space where the ark waits. Pilgrims stream into Jerusalem like rivers to the sea. The city of David becomes the city of God. Trade routes converge on Jerusalem like spokes on a wheel. Merchants know Solomon's peace keeps their caravans safe. His wisdom settles disputes. His justice makes promises secure. Abundance flows through Israel like oil through a smooth channel. The 12 tribes have forgotten their old divisions. Judah and Israel move forward as one people under one king. The civil wars that once stained the land red are now just distant memories. Unity brings strength, and strength brings a security that money alone cannot buy. Solomon's ships sail the seas, bringing back gold from Ophir and silver from Tarshish. Ivory apes and peacocks, they fill the royal storehouses. The king who builds God's house finds that God builds his kingdom in return. Divine blessing multiplies human effort far beyond logic. No wars are needed at all. Neighboring nations see Israel's wealth and choose submission over destruction. Tribute flows into the treasury like water into a spring. Peace over war. Wisdom over weapons. Every man rests under his own vine and fig tree. The ancient promise becomes daily reality. Children play in streets with no fear. Elders settle disputes with words instead of swords. Women draw water from the wells without scanning the horizon for raiders. The ark rules over this golden age like a king on his throne. Hidden behind the veil, it remains the source of all blessing. This divine presence that once guided Israel through the wilderness now guides them through abundance. God's throne anchors the nation's joy. Festivals fill the temple courts with joy. 3 times a year, all Israel comes to Jerusalem. Passover recalls freedom from Egypt. Pentecost celebrates the harvest. Tabernacles remembers their journey through the wilderness. The ark watches over every gathering from its hidden sanctuary. Justice flows from Solomon's throne like water from a spring. The king who asked for wisdom instead of wealth finds that both have arrived together. His rulings become proverbs. They outlast empires. His choices settle disputes that lesser minds cannot resolve. The temple's daily routine becomes the heartbeat of the nation. Morning and evening sacrifices mark the passing of time. Incense rises with the sun and drifts under the moon. The songs of the Levites provide the soundtrack for all people at peace with themselves and their God. Royal marriages seal powerful alliances. Solomon's wives bring their cultures to Jerusalem, but they also carry Israel's influence back to their homelands. Knowledge of the true God spreads like seeds on the wind, taking root in foreign soil. Building projects multiply like stars in the sky. Solomon's palace rises near the temple grand, but still secondary to God's house. Cities strengthen their walls, and roads link distant lands. These roads lay the foundation. Scholars from everywhere come to study in Solomon's court. The king who gathers proverbs also gathers wise people. Philosophy and poetry flourish under royal patronage. Israel's golden age is a time of achievement. The ark rests safe from all threat. No disasters shake its foundation. The wandering years feel like a distant dream. This is what the promised land was always meant to be, a place where God lives among his people in peace. Yet even in the noon of Solomon's reign, shadows gather on the horizon. The king's mind slowly drifts from the simple devotion of his youth. Foreign wives bring foreign gods. Wealth becomes its own temptation. The golden years carry the very seeds of their own ruin, division, and decay. Solomon's mind grows heavy with things beyond understanding. 1,000 wives fill his palace, each bringing her own gods and rituals. The king who built the Lord's holy temple now builds high places for Ashtoreth and Molech. Compromise seeps into his soul like water through cracked stone. The weight of glory becomes a burden too heavy for one man to carry. Heavy taxes rise to fund the king's grand building projects. Forced labor drags men away from their families and fields. The wealth that once blessed all of Israel now mostly serves the crown. The people who once loved their king begin to whisper against him. God's patience has limits, even for kings. The prophet Ahijah finds Jeroboam in the fields and tears his new cloak into 12 pieces. "Take 10 pieces," the prophet says. "You will rule 10 tribes of Israel." The kingdom David united begins to splinter while Solomon is still alive, yet for David's sake, judgment is delayed. Solomon dies in his bed, his reign over, but his dynasty still intact. The son who built God's temple sleeps with his ancestors, leaving behind a glory stained by compromise. Rehoboam takes the throne with his father's crown, but not his wisdom. The people gather at Shechem to crown their new king, but before they pledge loyalty, they make an appeal. "Your father's yoke was heavy," the elders say. "Lighten our load, and we will serve you." The young king faces his first major test, and the nation's future hangs on his reply. The older men counsel patience. "Serve these people today," they advise, "and they will serve you forever." But younger voices whisper very different advice. "Show them your strength," they urge him. "Make their yoke even heavier." Rehoboam listens to his friends instead of wise elders, choosing pride over understanding. His answer strikes like a whip. "My father made your heavy yoke, but I will make it even heavier. He scourged you with whips, but I will scourge you with scorpions." These words seal the nation's fate. Israel's unity shatters like a clay pot dropped on stone. 10 tribes walk away from Jerusalem, following Jeroboam toward a separate destiny. Only Judah and Benjamin remain loyal to David's line. The kingdom that stood united for 80 years tears right down the middle, never to heal during the reign of mortal kings. Jeroboam faces a crisis that threatens his brand new rule. His people still want to worship in Jerusalem, where the temple stands and the ark rests. If they journey south 3 times every year, their hearts might follow their footsteps. The northern king needs gods of his own. Golden calves are set up in Dan and Bethel. "Look, here are your gods, Israel," Jeroboam announces, echoing Aaron's ancient sin. "These brought you out of Egypt." The lie tastes sweet. Tired of long journeys to Jerusalem, convenience defeats conscience in the human heart. The ark watches this division from its golden sanctuary. Hidden behind the veil, it remains in the south, while half the nation walks away. The kingdom fractures, yet the holy center holds. God's throne remains exactly where Solomon placed it, steady while everything else shifts. Civil war rises like a barrier between the sister kingdoms. Jeroboam and Rehoboam raise armies against one another. The children of Jacob raise swords against their own brothers. The peace that blessed Israel for 40 years bleeds away in brotherly war. Foreign enemies see an easy opportunity in Israel's split. Shishak of Egypt marches north with chariots and horsemen. He strips the temple of its treasures, carrying off the golden shields Solomon made for royal displays. The glory begins to fade, treasure by precious treasure. Prophets emerge to speak God's word to deaf ears. Elijah stands on Mount Carmel, calling down fire from heaven. Elisha performs wonders that remind the people of God's power. Still, the kingdoms continue their slide toward ruin. Divine patience wears thin, like cloth rubbed too many times. The northern kingdom changes dynasties the way a man changes clothes. King after king rises and falls, each more wicked than the last. Murder becomes the standard path to power. Stability is now just a memory of golden eras that feel like dreams. Judah does better, but not well enough. David's line remains on the throne, but not every heir shares David's heart. Good kings alternate with bad ones. Reforms rise and fall like waves on a restless sea. The ark remains in its place, but fewer hearts turn toward its home. Prophets and warnings. Isaiah walks the streets of Jerusalem with visions burning in his eyes. The young prophet sees the Lord sitting on a high and exalted throne. Seraphim cry, "Holy, holy, holy," while the temple foundations shake. But when Isaiah looks at his people, he sees hearts grown cold and hands stained with injustice. The words from the prophet's lips cut like sharp blades. "Your new moons and feasts my soul hates," he proclaims in the temple courts. "They have become a burden to me. The very place where the ark rests echoes with divine frustration. Ritual without a righteous life is just noise in the ears of God." Judah's kings listen to Isaiah's warnings with ears that hear but do not understand. King Ahaz faced an invasion from both north and south. Instead of trusting God, whose throne sat behind the sanctuary curtain, he sent sacred gold to Assyria to buy their help. Wealth once dedicated to heaven now bought protection from foreign pagan kings. But Hezekiah was nothing like his father. When Assyrian forces surrounded Jerusalem like wolves circling a flock, the good king spread their threatening letters before the Lord in the temple. He prayed, "You who rule between the cherubim, show these nations that you alone are God." The ark's silent presence gave weight to his words. That night, death walked through the Assyrian camp. 185,000 soldiers took their last breath without a fight. Morning revealed a silent graveyard. Sennacherib fled back to Nineveh, his proud boasts turned to ash. The God of the ark proved his power to those who trusted him. Yet even good kings make terrible choices. When Babylonian envoys came to congratulate Hezekiah on recovering from his sickness, he showed them everything. Every single coin, every weapon, every secret of his kingdom. Pride opens doors that wisdom should keep locked. The prophet Isaiah's warning fell like a hammer. A time is coming when everything in your palace will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left. The very king who saved Jerusalem from Assyria set it up for ruin by Babylon. This dark future loomed over the land like storm clouds on a bright day. Manasseh took the throne when his father died, bringing with him a darkness deeper than midnight. The young king tore down his father's reforms like a man destroying his own house. Altars to pagan gods rose in the temple courts. What was holy became filthy under his rule. The ark sat in silence as horrors filled the house built for God. Manasseh even set up a carved idol inside the temple itself, polluting the very place meant only for pure worship. God's presence remained, but it remained in grief. Then Jeremiah began his work as a prophet while still a boy. "I am only a child," he protested when God called him. But holy words filled his mouth like a fire trapped in his bones. He couldn't keep quiet while his people rushed toward ruin, like a war horse charging into battle. The young prophet's message cut right against the grain. While fake prophets promised peace, Jeremiah warned of coming destruction. While others trusted the temple's presence to keep them safe, he warned that hollow rituals bring judgment instead of safety. "Do not trust in lies," Jeremiah warned in the temple courts. "Stop chanting the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord." The people thought the physical building would save them. They forgot that God does not live in walls of stone, but in human hearts that honor his commands. The prophet's words were incredibly unpopular, but they were true. Kings rose and fell, while Babylon grew stronger. King Nebuchadnezzar's armies marched west like an unstoppable wave. The small kingdom of Judah stood in their path, like prey before a lion. Jeremiah wept for his people, but he also prepared them for exile. "Build houses in Babylon," he wrote to the captives already taken there. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Seek the peace of the city where I have sent you. The prophet of doom was also the prophet of hope. Through all these turbulent years, the ark remained hidden in the most holy place. Kings changed, but the holy place stood firm. Prophets spoke, but the golden throne kept its own silent counsel. Wars raged, yet the mercy seat waited in quiet patience for hearts to seek true peace. Then Josiah became king at 8 years old, but his youth did not stop him. While workers were repairing the temple, they found the book of the law hidden like treasure in the walls. The young king heard the words of Moses and tore his robes in grief over how far his people had strayed from the old paths. A massive reform swept the land like spring after a bitter winter. Pagan shrines crumbled before the king's burning zeal. Foreign altars went up in smoke. The Passover returned to Jerusalem with a joy not seen since the days of King Solomon. For a brief moment, it looked like the nation might turn back to God. But the reform only changed rules, not hearts. When Josiah died fighting Pharaoh Necho at Megiddo, his reforms died with him. His sons went right back to the wicked ways of their ancestors. The brief spring of goodness faded back into the dark winter of coming judgment. The prophets' warnings grew louder as the end drew near. "Run from Jerusalem," they cried. "The destroyer comes from the north." But the people clung to their false security. They believed the temple's presence made them untouchable, forgetting that even holy places can face ruin. During the Babylonian siege in 587 BC, smoke rose from Jerusalem's walls. King Nebuchadnezzar's army surrounded the holy city, their bronze weapons gleaming under the desert sun. Inside the walls, parents held their children close and whispered frantic prayers. The siege had lasted 18 months. Food ran out weeks ago, and water was running low. Children cried with hollow eyes, while mothers sang old songs to soothe their hunger. The temple stood high, but its golden walls could not save the city from what was coming. Nebuchadnezzar was no ordinary conqueror. He ruled the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. His hanging gardens were legendary, his armies seemed unstoppable. Yet Jerusalem held something he wanted more than gold or land. The city held ancient secrets that could turn a mere king into a god. Outside, Babylonian siege walls crept closer every day. Battering rams pounded against gates that had never surrendered. Archers rained down a deadly shower of arrows over the stone walls. The sound of splintering wood echoed through narrow streets where Hebrew prophets used to walk. Inside the temple, priests kept up their daily rituals. The Holy of Holies remained hidden behind its heavy curtain. The ark rested in total darkness, holding the stone tablets Moses brought down from Mount Sinai. Golden cherubim watched over the quiet room, while the city died outside. King Zedekiah paced his palace floors as advisors whispered conflicting advice. Some demanded they fight to the death, others begged him to surrender. The king kept looking toward the temple, knowing what treasures lay hidden there. But he also knew what losing them would mean. The final attack was coming at dawn. Babylonian soldiers poured through the broken gates like water through a breached dam. They set fire to homes and shops. They dragged screaming families from their homes. Temple guards fought bravely, but were quickly overwhelmed. Nebuchadnezzar's commander, Nebuzaradan, led the assault on the temple itself. His men smashed through the outer courts with bronze axes. They melted down golden cups and loaded silver treasures onto heavy wagons. Every room they entered offered new wealth to plunder. Yet when they reached the Holy of Holies, something changed. The soldiers hesitated. The room felt different, sacred, almost dangerous. They tore down the curtain and stepped in, expecting to find the greatest treasure of all. The room was empty. Where the ark should have stood, there was only dust, no golden chest, no stone tablets, no cherubim with outspread wings, just empty space where the most powerful object on earth once rested. Nebuzaradan searched everywhere. His men ripped up the floor stones. They climbed into hidden crawl spaces behind the walls. They found nothing. The Ark of the Covenant had vanished like morning mist. The commander reported to his king, his voice full of confusion. They had captured the city. They had burned the temple and taken thousands of prisoners, yet the one thing that mattered most was gone. Some prisoners claimed the priests had hidden it. Others said angels had carried it away. A few whispered that the ark simply returned to heaven when the temple fell. No one knew the truth. The mystery began that day, and it continues to this day. The Babylonians took everything else. Golden lampstands, silver bowls, massive bronze pillars that towered over the courts. They loaded wagon after wagon with temple treasures. Yet their greatest prize had slipped through their fingers like water. Jerusalem burned for days. The temple walls crumbled into dust, and the Holy of Holies lay open to the sky. Rain fell on stones that had never seen the sun. The sacred ground had become ordinary dirt. Thousands of Jews were marched east toward Babylon, carrying memories of their lost temple and stories of their missing ark. Children born in exile would grow up hearing whispered stories of the golden chest that once held God's presence on earth. The fall of Jerusalem was more than a defeat. It closed a massive chapter in human history. The Ark of the Covenant, which had led armies and brought down cities, which had brought plagues and blessings, and held the very words of God, had vanished from the earth. But vanishing is not the same as dying. The story of the ark was far from over. Its absence would prove to be just as powerful as its presence had ever been. The search would begin immediately and last for centuries. Kings and priests, warriors and treasure hunters would spend their lives chasing shadows of what once was. The Babylonian conquest took so much from Jerusalem. It took lives and freedom, gold and glory. But it could never steal their memories. The Ark lived on in stories told around exile campfires. It survived in dreams of return and restoration. It kept alive the hope that what was lost might one day be found again. As for how it disappeared, the Ark left no trace behind. No ancient writer recorded its fate. No eyewitness described its final moments. One day it was there, the next it was gone. This silence left room for endless theories to grow. The simplest explanation is often the most painful. When Babylonian soldiers stormed the temple, they might have destroyed everything they found. Bronze melts quickly in a hot fire. Gold can be melted down and reshaped. Even sacred things become mere metal when empires fall. But this theory troubles many believers. How could something so sacred just burn away? The Ark had survived slavery in Egypt and wilderness wanderings. It had crossed the Jordan and conquered Jericho. Would God really let it burn in a Babylonian fire? Another possibility is that the temple priests saw the end coming. Prophets had warned of Jerusalem's destruction for years. Wise leaders might have hidden the ark before enemy soldiers arrived. They could have sealed it away in underground chambers or carried to safety in distant lands. The theory is certainly a romantic one. It suggests the ark is still out there, waiting for the right moment to return. Treasure hunters absolutely love that idea. It gives them something to seek. Empty caves. But some scholars point to the words of Jeremiah. The prophet spoke of hiding sacred objects until Israel was restored. He spoke of secret places where holy things would rest safely. His words suggest preparation for a coming catastrophe, not a quiet acceptance of loss. And the timing supports this theory. The siege of Jerusalem lasted for 18 long months. The temple priests had plenty of time to prepare. They could have slipped the ark out piece by piece. Perhaps they hid it in caves or buried it deep in the desert sands. But where would they take it? Egypt had large Jewish communities. The ark could have traveled south along ancient trade routes. Ethiopian tradition claims it eventually ended up in their mountains. It was brought there by fleeing priests seeking safety from the Babylonian forces. But another theory claims the ark never left Jerusalem at all. The box might still rest deep beneath the Temple Mount, sealed in chambers that earthquakes pushed even deeper over time. Modern excavations are strictly forbidden on this sacred site, so the theory can never be tested. The ark could be resting 50 feet below tourist sandals, and no one would ever know. Some believe King Josiah hid it years before the Babylonian siege. This king purged the land, tearing down foreign altars and reforming temple worship. He might have hidden the ark during these reforms, keeping it safe from future threats. This ancient text lists holy objects hidden in secret places, and some entries seem to match temple treasures that vanished during the Babylonian invasion. The scroll might be a treasure map left by fleeing priests. Other traditions offer more supernatural explanations. Some say the ark returned to heaven once its earthly purpose ended. Others believe it simply became invisible, present yet hidden until the world is worthy to see it again. These ideas can never be proven or disproven. Evidence remains frustratingly scarce. No ancient site has ever yielded fragments of the ark. No inscription points to its hiding place. No ancient tomb carving shows its final journey. The ark vanished so completely that some wonder if it ever existed at all. Yet this silence proves nothing. Desert sands shift and bury secrets. Mountain caves collapse and seal away their contents. Ocean currents carry lost ships to forgotten shores. The ark could be anywhere on Earth. Fortunately, modern technology offers fresh hope for these ancient searches. Ground-penetrating radar can peer through solid rock. Satellite imagery reveals hidden structures, and modern analysis can identify tiny biological traces. Yet these tools cannot search everywhere. Far from it. They cannot reach the most likely hiding places. Politics complicate everything. The Temple Mount sits at the center of competing religious claims, and excavating there could easily spark a war. Many governments restrict archaeology in sensitive areas, so the ark may remain hidden, not because we cannot find it, but because we cannot search for it safely. Every theory has its dedicated believers. Ethiopian Christians guard their ancient chapels. Jewish scholars study every text for clues. Christian mystics pray for a miraculous revelation. Islamic traditions also weave the ark into their holy stories. Everyone wants to solve the mystery, but perhaps the mystery itself is the point. The lost ark fires the human imagination in ways a discovered one never could. Its absence creates a profound longing. Its silence demands attention. Its disappearance ensures it lives on forever. And the theories multiply each year. New documents surface. Fresh interpretations emerge. Modern technology reveals hidden possibilities. The hunt goes on because the questions remain unanswered. And so, the ark exists somewhere between history and myth, between what was and what could be. Its disappearance marks the beginning of its true power. Lost things always cast a longer shadow than found ones ever could. High up in the Ethiopian mountains, where eagles soar above ancient stone chapels, lies a remarkable claim. Guardians protect a mystery they claim is 3,000 years old. In the sacred city of Axum, behind stone walls and iron gates, they say the Ark of the Covenant has found its final resting place. The chapel of Our Lady Mary of Zion stands like a fortress against time. Its walls are thick, weathered, Its spires reach high into the African sky. Inside these walls, Ethiopian Orthodox priests preserve a tradition that began, they say, when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians. Their story starts with Solomon and Sheba. The Ethiopian queen traveled north to test Solomon's wisdom. She arrived with gold, spices, and precious frankincense, and precious gems. Yet she left with far more than she brought. According to Ethiopian tradition, Sheba bore Solomon a son named Menelik. The young prince grew up in his mother's mountain kingdom, but longed to meet his famous father. Once he came of age, he journeyed to Jerusalem with a massive caravan. Solomon welcomed his son with great joy and celebration. He showed him the temple treasures and taught him royal wisdom. Yet when the time came for Menelik to return home, the young prince carried home something Solomon never meant to give. Legend has it that Menelik took the Ark of the Covenant. He swapped it for a clever replica and smuggled the real Ark south to Ethiopia. It remains there today, guarded by a long line of holy men. This story is written in the Kebra Nagast, the great chronicle of Ethiopia. It tells how the Ark brought divine favor to the high country. It explains why their kingdom thrived while others collapsed. It confirms their ancient claim as the chosen people of God. Yet cold history tells a different story. Solomon and Sheba lived centuries before the Ark went missing. If Menelik even existed, he could not have taken the Ark that Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers failed to find. The timeline simply does not work. Still, Ethiopian priests offer other explanations. Some claim it arrived during the Babylonian conquest. Some believe fleeing temple priests brought it, while others say Jewish refugees delivered it centuries later. The details change, but the central claim remains unshaken. Today, a single monk is chosen to guard it for life. He lives alone in a small chapel beside the main church. He can never leave the grounds nor speak to outsiders about his charge. He cannot even look directly at the object he protects. This keeper of the Ark follows strict rules passed down through generations. He prays constantly. He fasts. He maintains ceremonial purity by strictly following ancient sacred rules. His entire life revolves around an object most people will never see. Only this single guardian may go near the Ark. Other priests serve the sanctuary, but they must keep their distance. Even the Ethiopian Orthodox Patriarch cannot demand to see what lies behind those locked doors. This intense secrecy breeds both faith and skepticism. Believers insist the holy chest is simply too sacred for ordinary eyes to look upon. They point to biblical warnings about touching sacred objects, arguing that keeping it hidden actually proves its authenticity. Skeptics point out that claims without proof are just stories. They wonder why Ethiopian kings never used its power to strengthen their rule if it truly rests in Axum. They ask if anything real actually exists behind all the ancient rituals. Meanwhile, the state supports the church's claim while keeping a careful political distance. Naturally, tourism thrives on the mystery. Pilgrims travel from all over the world hoping to touch something truly holy. Axum's economy relies heavily on travelers drawn to this holy site. Yet archaeological discoveries tell a mixed story. Axum was indeed a powerful ancient empire linked to both Israel and Egypt. Jewish communities settled in Ethiopia many centuries ago. These cultural ties were real even if the specific claims about the Ark cannot be proven. Modern attempts to study the object have consistently failed as the Church flatly refuses any outside investigation. Carbon dating requires testing samples they will not give up. X-ray imaging demands access they refuse to grant. Because proof is impossible, the mystery endures. Still, some visitors report strange, unexplainable experiences near the chapel grounds. They speak of sudden feelings of deep peace or immense power. Cameras freeze, battery-powered devices drain in an instant. Whether this is divine presence or just high expectation remains a mystery. But the annual Timkat festival offers a glimpse of what lies hidden. Priests carry replica arks through crowds in vibrant, colorful parades. They bless the waters and perform solemn baptism rituals. But the true ark, if it exists, remains locked away from sight. Ethiopian Christianity is deeply rooted in ancient, time-honored traditions. Their claims deserve respect, even without hard proof. After all, their faith has survived centuries of persecution and war. Their culture preserves memories other nations have long forgotten. Yet personal faith and historical science follow completely different paths. What believers hold as absolute truth, historians must study as a possibility. The Ethiopian claim remains unproven, though not impossible. The holy chest might indeed rest in the highlands of Axum, guarded by dedicated monks. This story reveals deeper truths about our human nature and the power of mystery. We deeply crave sacred spaces and holy things. We long to connect with something much greater than ourselves. Whether the physical ark is actually in Ethiopia matters less than what its presence represents. This claim survives because it serves a vital purpose. It guards their unique cultural identity. It captures the attention of the world and preserves ancient traditions in a rapidly changing world. The ark, whether real or symbolic, remains alive in the African highlands. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the quest is more important than the discovery. Maybe the story points to a deeper truth, even if the facts escape us. The guardians keep watch regardless of who believes them. Consider the prophet Jeremiah. When dark shadows fell over Jerusalem like a gathering storm, one voice rang out above the rest. Jeremiah walked the city streets, tears on his face and fire in his words. He saw what was coming long before anyone else dared to admit it. He watched kings ignore warnings and priests corrupt holy practices. He saw the temple turned into a marketplace and heard God's name used to justify evil deeds. His heart broke with every warning of ruin he had to speak. But Jeremiah was far more than just a messenger of doom. Early records hint he also served as the keeper of holy treasures. With ruin fast approaching, someone had to save what was left. Someone had to keep hope alive for those yet to be born. This tale comes from old scrolls that early Christians treasured. The second book of Maccabees tells a story that scholars still debate today, but treasure hunters dream about. It describes how Jeremiah took action as Babylonian armies marched on Jerusalem. According to this account, the prophet received divine warnings as the enemy closed in on the city. He was told to rescue the most holy items from the temple before they were destroyed or looted. It was a secret, high-stakes mission. Jeremiah gathered a few trusted helpers under the cover of night. They slipped inside through hidden passageways known only to the priests. Working by the dim light of the moon, they carefully lifted the Ark of the Covenant from the deepest sanctuary. Moving it must have broken their hearts. The Ark had rested in that sacred room for 400 years, serving as the heartbeat of Israel's faith and the ultimate symbol of God dwelling among His people. Carrying it away felt almost like abandoning their home. But Jeremiah saw the bigger picture. The temple would fall, but the Ark could survive. The nation would break, but the promise would endure. By hiding these holy treasures, he kept the future of their faith alive. The prophet and his small band carried their priceless cargo out of Jerusalem under the safety of night. They headed east toward the Jordan River, moving slowly to avoid being seen. Each step took them further from the city they loved, pushing them deeper into the quiet wilderness. Their destination was Mount Nebo, the very peak where Moses once stood to look out over the promised land before his death. This peak was sacred ground for Israel. It was a place of endings and new beginnings, of grief and hope. It was the perfect spot to hide a treasure. High on the slopes of Mount Nebo, Jeremiah found a cave that seemed almost made for their purpose. The entrance was narrow and easily concealed, while the inside was dry and spacious. Most importantly, it lay far from the roads and towns where curious eyes might look. Working together, the prophet and his helpers carried the heavy ark deep into the cavern. They brought the tent of meeting, the altar of incense, and other sacred vessels from the temple. Everything they could save, they gathered in this hidden sanctuary. Once the holy objects were safe inside, Jeremiah sealed the cave entrance. He marked the spot in a way that future generations might understand, but casual travelers would completely miss. When the prophet walked away, he carried the secret with him. The old texts say Jeremiah spoke a prophecy about what he had done. He declared that the spot would remain lost until God gathered his people again. At the right moment, the hidden treasures would be revealed and the divine glory would return to Israel. Some of his followers wanted to mark the cave more clearly. They wanted to pile stones or carve signs to guide future searchers. But Jeremiah stopped them. He insisted that human plans must not interfere with God's perfect timing. The prophet declared that the secret would stay safe until the hour was right. No amount of searching would find it early. Only when God's purpose was fulfilled would the cave give up its treasures. Until then, the ark had to stay in the dark. This legend has inspired countless searches over the centuries. Mount Nebo is not very large, and its caves can be thoroughly explored. Yet despite many attempts, no one has found real proof of Jeremiah's hiding spot. Some explorers claim they found sealed caves holding ancient relics, while others speak of strange events on the mountain: weird electromagnetic readings, failing equipment, or a sudden overwhelming sense of presence. But hard proof remains elusive. The story still comforts those who believe holy treasures do not simply vanish. If the ark could survive Egypt, the wilderness, Philistine capture, and David's journey, surely it would not perish in Babylonian flames. Jeremiah's plan offers a logical explanation for how it survived. Archaeological digs on Mount Nebo have found ancient settlements and Byzantine ruins, showing the mountain was a sacred place for centuries. Yet no dig has ever turned up temple treasures or signs of the prophet's cave. Today, modern politics make searching even harder. Mount Nebo lies in Jordan, near sensitive borders. Any dig requires official permits and international cooperation. Illegal treasure hunting is strictly banned, and real research moves very slowly. Even so, the story survives because it offers hope in times of deep loss. When everything falls apart, maybe someone is working in the shadows, protecting what matters most. When darkness covers the world, perhaps a light is being kept safe for better days. This story touches on deeper truths about faith and survival. In every generation, some feel called to protect sacred things from those who would destroy them. They work in secret, often without any thanks, to make sure these treasures survive the darkest times. Whether Jeremiah really hid the ark on Mount Nebo matters less than what the story teaches us about courage and long-term vision. The prophet's actions inspire us to take responsibility for protecting what we value most deeply. The story suggests some things are too precious to ever be lost forever. They might vanish for a while, hidden from those who would harm them, waiting patiently for the moment they can return to the light. The Knights Templar and tales of During. During the Middle Ages, when Christian armies marched east to take back the Holy Land, they carried more than swords and armor. They brought a deep hope of finding lost relics that could unleash the very power of heaven on earth. Of all the relics they hunted, nothing seized their minds quite like the lost Ark of the Covenant. The First Crusade captured Jerusalem in 1099 after a brutal siege. Soon, European knights walked the very streets where Jesus once taught and King David danced. They searched the ruins of Solomon's temple, digging for sacred objects that had been buried under centuries of rubble. These knights were practical men who understood the value of holy relics. Sacred artifacts drew travelers, and travelers brought gold, but more importantly, owning objects touched by divine power could legitimize their claim to rule these newly conquered lands. Out of this world of faith and ambition rose the Knights Templar. Founded around 1120, they began as a small group sworn to protect pilgrims on dangerous roads, but they quickly grew into something far more powerful and mysterious. The Templars set up their headquarters on the Temple Mount, right where Solomon's temple once stood. They built their rooms over the ancient ruins and spent decades digging deep beneath the holy ground. Exactly what they found in those dark tunnels remains one of history's great riddles. Old storytellers whispered about secret discoveries. Some claimed the knights had actually unearthed the Ark of the Covenant during their long search. Other stories said they found ancient scrolls containing lost divine secrets. A few insisted they uncovered wealth beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The truth is harder to pin down than the legends, but the Templars did become incredibly rich during their 200 years of power. They set up early banking networks and acquired massive estates across Europe. Their sudden wealth seemed to come from something more than just donations. Some historians believe the knights found a hidden fortune beneath the Temple Mount. Ancient gold and silver could explain their rapid rise to riches. Sacred relics would explain their massive influence over kings and popes. To the medieval mind, the Ark was far more than gold. It meant divine favor and absolute power. Any group claiming to own it could justify almost any action. The Templars never made such claims out loud, but rumors followed them wherever they went. They held their rituals in total secrecy. New recruits took solemn vows never to speak of Templar practices or possessions. The knights built their own unique traditions, blending Christian faith with strange practices learned in the East. Eventually, rivals accused them of heresy and devil worship. Supporters praised their courage in battle, but everyone agreed on one thing: the Templars guarded secrets they never shared with outsiders. The nature of those secrets is still debated today, but the end of their order came fast and violently. In 1307, King Philip IV of France ordered the sudden arrest of every Templar in his kingdom. He charged them with blasphemy, indecency, and worshipping false idols. The charges were probably made up, but they served the king's goals. Under brutal torture, some Templars confessed to horrific crimes. They admitted to spitting on the cross and strange initiation rites. A few even claimed they worshipped a mysterious head called Baphomet. Most modern historians dismiss these confessions because they were forced. But the trials did reveal one fascinating detail. Several knights spoke of a hidden object that gave their order its great power. They could not describe it clearly, but they swore it was worth more than gold or jewels. Some scholars still wonder if they were talking about the Ark. The order's last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314. As the flames took him, he cursed King Philip and Pope Clement V. Both men died within months, fueling rumors of the Templars' supernatural power. The fall of the Templars scattered the surviving knights across Europe. Some joined other holy orders. Others vanished completely. A few may have carried Templar secrets to distant lands, far beyond the reach of greedy kings. Later legends claim the survivors took their greatest treasures to Scotland, Portugal, or even the New World. These stories suggest the Ark traveled with fleeing knights, searching for a safe haven away from hostile kings and popes. The Templars inspired countless legends and conspiracy theories, painted as guardians of ancient wisdom who held unbelievable relics. The Ark is central to many of these tales, always hidden but never truly lost. Old medieval maps sometimes marked locations where sacred treasures were supposedly buried. Templar properties often appeared on these maps, suggesting a link between the knights and hidden relics. Yet searches at these spots usually turned up nothing. The order's rapid rise and mysterious wealth still puzzle historians today. Their excavations beneath the Temple Mount might explain both. If they did uncover ancient treasures, perhaps even the Ark itself, they could have used them to build their massive empire. Modern archaeology has revealed very little about what the Templars did on the Temple Mount. The site remains politically sensitive, and digging is strictly banned. The tunnels the Knights explored have been sealed or destroyed over the centuries. But some researchers point to architectural clues in Templar churches across Europe. They claim that specific design details reflect knowledge gained from studying ancient Hebrew relics. The dimensions and carvings might encode secrets found in Jerusalem. The mystery deepens when we look at the Templars' sudden retreat from the Holy Land. When their position became impossible to defend, they made no obvious attempt to rescue their legendary treasures. Maybe those treasures never actually existed, or perhaps they were moved to safety. The Ark's link with the Knights Templar shows how medieval Christianity struggled with its Hebrew roots. Believers honored old Hebrew scriptures, yet they frequently oppressed living Hebrew families. They hunted for relics from Solomon's temple while tearing down actual synagogues. This legend survives because it mixes everything that captures our imagination: secret societies, lost gold, sacred mysteries, and divine power make for an unforgettable story. True or not, the tale still inspires new generations of seekers. The Templars vanished, but their stories refused to die. In every hidden cave and sealed vault, hunters still hope to find proof of those secret discoveries. The Ark of the Covenant remains the ultimate prize in this endless game of historical hide-and-seek. Enter the Nazis and the occult. Within the twisted maze of Nazi thinking, ancient symbols held a power that modern weapons could not match. Hitler and his followers believed mysterious relics could tip the scales of war. Out of all the relics they chased, the Ark of the Covenant was their ultimate prize. This Nazi obsession with the occult began long before they ever took power in Germany. Secret societies and occult groups flourished during the chaotic aftermath of World War I. Young men like Heinrich Himmler obsessed over books about ancient mysteries and lost civilizations. These early Nazis convinced themselves they were destined to uncover secrets that previous generations had forgotten or ignored. They saw themselves as modern crusaders on a quest for artifacts that would grant them supernatural power. The Ark became the center of their obsession. Himmler, the future leader of the SS, was particularly fascinated by archaeological expeditions. He believed that proper research could locate the items mentioned in ancient texts. He also thought that controlling these objects would prove Nazi Germany had a divine right to rule the world. To pursue these ideas with scientific backing, they founded the Ahnenerbe Ancestral Heritage Society in 1935. This organization blended real science with bizarre racial theories. Its members searched for evidence of Aryan superiority among the ruins of ancient empires. One of their most ambitious projects focused directly on the Holy Land. Nazi researchers pored over ancient texts that might reveal where lost relics were hidden. They paid close attention to Hebrew sources, believing that ancient temple priests had written down clues about the sacred objects. Their 1938 expedition to Ethiopia was their biggest attempt to find the Ark. Led by Ernst Schaefer, the team officially studied Tibetan culture and geography, but secret orders instructed them to investigate Ethiopian claims about holding the Ark of the Covenant. The expedition members were handpicked for their specific expertise and their absolute loyalty to Nazi ideology. The team included anthropologists, linguists, and photographers to document whatever they found. They also carried weapons and radio equipment for much darker purposes. Schaefer's team spent months in the mountains of Ethiopia pretending to study local wildlife and traditions. but they also made contact with Ethiopian Orthodox priests and visited ancient religious sites. They investigated the claims surrounding the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum. The results of their search remain locked away in German archives. Some files were destroyed during the chaotic final days of the war. Others were seized by Allied forces and have never been fully released. Exactly what the Nazis uncovered in Ethiopia remains a mystery. Modern historians believe they found no trace of the real Ark. Ethiopian priests refused to help the foreign researchers. Local authorities became deeply suspicious of their work. The expedition returned to Germany with biological specimens, but zero sacred relics. Yet some Nazi documents hint at more successful searches in other locations. Himmler authorized expeditions to caves in Palestine and ancient ruins in Iraq. These operations were kept strictly classified and left almost no paper trail in official archives. Nazi interest in the Ark was far from purely academic. They believed that holding it would make them completely invincible in battle. Ancient scriptures described how the Ark could destroy enemies and protect whoever carried it. Hitler's military leaders thought this power could secure victory even against overwhelming odds. This belief influenced Nazi strategy during the later years of the war. As conventional warfare failed them, they turned their focus toward supernatural solutions. Secret research projects swallowed up funding and manpower that could have gone to actual military efforts. The Ark also fit their twisted theories about Hebrew inferiority. They claimed that the Hebrew people were unworthy guardians of such a powerful artifact. Under their warped logic, Aryan Germans deserved to possess holy relics that lesser races had lost or neglected. This twisted view justified their persecution of Hebrew scholars and the destruction of Hebrew archives. They believed that wiping out Hebrew communities would eliminate any competition for ancient secrets. They also hoped that terrorizing Hebrew communities would force survivors to reveal hidden knowledge. Eventually, Allied intelligence agents caught wind of these Nazi expeditions. British and American spies began their own hunt for artifacts that might interest the enemy. The war stretched beyond active battlefields and into libraries and ancient ruins. Much of this rivalry focused on the Dead Sea region, where both sides hoped to discover clues about temple treasures. Nazi and Allied agents sometimes operated in the very same territories, though they rarely crossed paths directly. The region became a silent battlefield for ancient secrets. The most desperate Nazi search occurred in the final months of the war. As Allied troops closed in on Germany, SS squads were reportedly sent on frantic missions to track down supernatural weapons. These final search efforts accomplished nothing besides, quote, "This was a waste of resources that Germany desperately needed for real defense." The Nazis never found the Ark or anything else that could save them from defeat. Their obsession with the occult only hastened their downfall. Decades later, the connection between Nazis and the Ark became pop culture legend through the 1981 film Raiders of the Lost Ark. The movie took massive liberties with history, but captured a basic truth. The Nazi obsession was real. Showing soldiers hunting the Ark struck a chord with audiences who knew the regime's real-life hunger for power. Hollywood fiction mirrored actual history, even when details were altered for the big screen. Today, researchers still dig into Nazi archaeology. Newly declassified files occasionally shed light on these strange wartime expeditions. But most of these hunts remain buried in rumor and myth. This dark legacy still shadows modern searches for the Covenant's Ark. Any modern expedition following in Nazi footsteps risks being linked to their dark, twisted theories. That shadow makes serious archaeological work incredibly delicate and politically charged. The Nazi chapter in the Ark story shows how ancient relics get tangled in modern politics. Sacred objects that once united people in faith can easily divide them through competing claims and bitter arguments. The Nazis never found the Ark, but their hunt showed the enduring power of this ancient symbol. In their hands, it would have become a weapon of terror, not a sign of God's grace. Perhaps its absolute silence kept it safe from such desecration and greed. The 20th century dragged the search out of quiet libraries and directly into the media spotlight. Treasure hunters with metal detectors and cameras, they searched everywhere. Some wanted fame, others wealth. But they all believed they could solve history's most elusive mystery. And then the modern search began in the 1960s. As global travel got much easier, explorers could reach rugged Ethiopian peaks, search Jordanian caves, and hunt Dead Sea relics with ease. Suddenly, the whole world felt much smaller. Ron Wyatt, a nurse anesthetist from Tennessee, became one of the most controversial searchers of the late 20th century. He claimed he found Noah's Ark, the Red Sea crossing, and finally, the Covenant's Ark. Professional scholars dismissed his claims, but he gathered passionate followers. His wildest story involved a dark chamber beneath Jerusalem's Calvary. He said he squeezed through narrow tunnels and found the Ark exactly where Jeremiah hid it 26 centuries ago. The discovery supposedly happened in 1982 during secret digs. The story sounded like an adventure movie. Wyatt described strange, supernatural events that kept him from taking any photos of the relic. He claimed that lab tests on blood dried at the site proved it belonged to Jesus Christ. His claims blended archaeology with divine revelation. Academic researchers were highly skeptical. Wyatt offered absolutely no verifiable evidence for his claims. His photographs were blurry or obviously faked, and other researchers could never replicate his work. Yet his followers believed him. Israeli authorities refused to grant Wyatt permission to dig under Jerusalem, stating it required high-level permits and international oversight. Digging without a permit in such a volatile area meant instant arrest and serious prison time. Despite the holes in his story, Wyatt's claims spread fast through devout communities, books, and early websites. Audiences were hungry for proof that biblical history was literally true, so the lack of scientific proof only seemed to make the tale more seductive. Other modern hunters focused entirely on Ethiopia's claims. Documentaries brought global attention to the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum. Reporters and film crews tried to interview the guardian monk who supposedly guards the relic. But these efforts only highlighted the heavy secrecy surrounding the Ethiopian claims. The guardian refused to speak openly about his holy duty. Church leaders offered vague statements about their sacred tradition, but zero concrete proof. Some researchers tried using a purely scientific approach. They used ground-penetrating radar on the church grounds, searching for anomalies that might point to hidden chambers. They combed old texts for African clues. The results were completely inconclusive. Radar scans showed underground shapes that could be ancient chambers or just modern pipes. The texts offered legends but no solid historical proof. The Ethiopian church kept its secrets. Meanwhile, other hunters chased different leads. Teams searched caves across the Middle East, hunting for hidden temple treasures. They tracked ancient trade routes that fleeing priests might have used. They scrutinized every clue in the historical records. The Dead Sea became a major hotspot. Finding ancient scrolls in nearby caves suggested other sacred treasures might still be buried there. Men with metal detectors scanned the rocky hillsides and dry valleys, hoping for a miracle. Many claimed discoveries, but none held up. Back in 1981, a group claimed they found precious metal pieces matching the biblical descriptions. Tests proved it was just modern brass, chemically aged to look ancient. The scam humiliated serious researchers and shattered public trust in archaeology. Then the internet arrived, complicating the search. Online forums soon popped up filled with self-proclaimed insiders. They whispered about classified government cover-ups. Conspiracy theorists insisted that powerful shadow groups had already found the Ark. They claimed it was hidden away from the public. These wild stories blended facts with pure fiction, making the truth impossible to untangle. Other modern searchers bypassed shovels entirely, focusing instead on ancient texts. They scanned old manuscripts with software, hunting for hidden patterns that past scholars missed. They built massive digital databases, logging every reference to the chest in old scrolls, searching for missed clues. High-tech mapping tools offered fresh hope. Satellites could pinpoint ancient ruins missed from the ground, while digital models rebuilt old Jerusalem, highlighting potential hiding places. The tools were incredible, yet the results remained hollow. Professional archaeologists grew deeply frustrated by amateur hunters who ruined precious historical sites in their frantic rush. Illegal digging destroyed crucial context that could never be recovered. In reality, the hunt was doing far more harm than good to serious science. Officials in Israel, Jordan, and Ethiopia cracked down, placing strict limits on all field research. Permits were nearly impossible to get, and foreign teams faced intense scrutiny. Wild claims about the Ark made official teamwork highly sensitive, yet the hunts never stopped. Every new wave of searchers believed they held advantages their predecessors simply lacked. Surely better gear, deeper knowledge, or divine guidance would help them succeed where everyone else had failed. It was an endless, unresolved cycle. TV networks quickly cashed in on the public's deep obsession. Docuseries promised definitive answers, but offered nothing more than wild guesses and dramatic reenactments. Television chose cheap thrills over patient research, prioritizing entertainment over history. Shows featured self-proclaimed experts making mind-boggling claims without a shred of evidence. They spun tales of ancient conspiracies and modern cover-ups with absolute certainty. Viewers could barely tell real science from fantasy. Then the rise of social media amplified both genuine archaeology and ridiculous hoaxes. Amateurs could instantly broadcast their wild theories to a global audience. Viral videos claimed to show pieces of the Ark or secret digs. Fact-checking became almost impossible in that relentless flood of information. Video editing and Photoshop made these hoaxes look incredibly real. Fake photos showed golden relics that simply did not exist. Forged documents looked highly professional. Soon the thin line between hard proof and pure fantasy blurred beyond recognition. Despite the noise, some modern scholars kept doing real work, applying strict scientific standards to ancient texts. They teamed up with established universities. They published their work in peer-reviewed journals, letting other experts double-check their findings. These true researchers made real contributions to our understanding of the Ark's actual history. They clarified when biblical books were written, mapped ancient trade routes, and analyzed physical evidence from temple-era ruins. Their work pushed history forward, even without finding the chest itself. Instead, science revealed just how little physical proof survives. Ancient texts are scarce and often contradict each other. Ruins from that specific era are highly fragmented. The historical record has massive gaps that may never be filled, leaving plenty of room for both honest study and wild imagination. Serious researchers accepted the limits of what we can know. Popular writers simply filled those silent gaps with thrilling stories. Each path satisfies a different audience with different needs. Our modern pursuit of the lost chest mirrors our own complex relationship with ancient mysteries. We wield incredible, unprecedented technology, yet we face the exact same brick walls that have blocked searchers for centuries. Physical proof remains elusive no matter how advanced our machines. Perhaps the journey has become far more important than the destination. This quest taps into human curiosity and spiritual longing in ways that cold academic history never can. The mystery feeds a hunger that easy answers would only starve. Today's searchers represent a deeper human drive to find physical proof for invisible beliefs. In an age dominated by cold science, people still crave tangible things to validate their faith. The Ark offers a bridge between heaven and earth that many desperately long to cross. The fakes and false claims that plague modern hunts reflect this deep hunger for certainty. When real proof is missing, we invent it. When reality disappoints, fantasy rushes in to fill the void. The line between belief and evidence becomes dangerously blurred. Yet serious science continues right alongside the hype. Researchers are applying fresh methods to these old questions. Technology uncovers long-buried secrets of ancient sites. The conversation between the past and present goes on, driven by patient study rather than wild speculation. This modern chapter of the Ark story is still being written. Every year brings new claims and fresh investigations. Some will prove totally worthless, but others might help us finally understand. The search goes on because the deep questions remain unanswered, and perhaps that is fitting. The Ark belonged to an ancient time when holy mystery was just a natural part of life. Its disappearance protects our sense of wonder in a modern age that often reduces everything to mere facts and cold analysis. Far more than gold, and acacia wood far beyond ancient craft or historical mystery, the Ark carries a weight that far exceeds its physical form. Across different cultures and centuries, it has become an enduring symbol of our deepest hunger to connect with the divine. In Israelite tradition, this sacred chest showed that God was truly present among his chosen people. It served as the earthly throne where the unseen God would meet with human leaders. The space between the golden wings of the cherubim marked the thin border between heaven and earth, where infinite holiness touched fragile humanity. This meaning runs deeper than mere art. The Ark was the living heart of the covenant, the sacred bond between God and his people. What lay inside reminded the people of their sacred duties and God's absolute faithfulness. The stone tablets were not just ancient laws, but living proof of a shared life. The biblical writers described this sacred object using terms taken from royal palaces. Earthly kings sat on grand seats of power to rule. In the same way, the Ark represented the throne of God in the spiritual world. But this divine throne moved with the wanderers instead of staying locked behind heavy palace walls, giving it a unique power. While pagan idols were fixed to specific temples, the God of Israel traveled wherever his people walked. The Ark showed a God who was close, yet always beyond human control. Later early Christians found beautiful new meaning in this sacred object. They saw deep connections between the Ark's role in the Hebrew Scriptures and the saving work of Jesus in the Gospels. Both served as the ultimate meeting place between God and humanity, healing the deep rift caused by human failing. In the Middle Ages, teachers found deep meaning in every detail. Its pure gold spoke of Christ's divine nature. The simple wood showed his humanity, while the cherubim mirrored the worship of angels. Every piece pointed straight to the sacred life of the Church. Some ancient traditions even viewed Mary, the mother of Jesus, as the new Ark of the Covenant. Indeed, she carried the divine presence within her body, just as the golden chest once held God's glory in the sanctuary. This kept the lost treasure alive in human hearts long after it physically vanished. Islamic traditions also respect the deep meaning of the Ark. The Quran mentions it as a powerful sign given to the children of Israel. It is described as a vessel holding precious relics of Moses and Aaron, and its loss marked a turning point in their spiritual journey. The power of this symbol reaches far beyond any single religion. It speaks to the human search for the sacred in a purely material world. We long to touch the divine, to hold holy power in our hands, even when it remains beyond our grasp. Modern psychologists see deep universal patterns in the sacred chest. A chest containing holy objects appears in many cultures and faiths. Such vessels represent our own capacity to hold deep spiritual truths inside us. They show the deep search for meaning that drives us. The fact that the ark is lost adds another layer of mystery. What is lost is often more powerful than what is found. The absent chest represents everything sacred we have let slip away through neglect, through human violence, or simply the slow march of time. This empty space invites wonder and imagination. The lost ark becomes whatever we need it to be. For some, it represents perfect justice, endless power, or unconditional love. Its hiddenness protects it from the disappointment that real life often brings. Even politicians have used the image of the ark for their own purposes. Empires seeking power have claimed ancient ties to Israel and its holy treasure. Rebel groups have used its image to declare that God is on their side. The symbol serves both the powerful and the revolutionary. The ark also holds the tension between closeness and danger that marks all spiritual life. It was at once the most approachable and the most terrifying object in ancient Israel. The people needed it close, yet they dared not touch it. This beautiful tension still speaks to seekers today. Artworks of the ark have changed over the centuries, reflecting our shifting beliefs. Monks in the Middle Ages painted it as a brilliant jeweled box. Renaissance artists drew it with perfect classical balance. Today we tend to focus on its strange, ancient, and otherworldly nature. Every drawing tells us far more about the artists than the object itself. The ark becomes a mirror reflecting our deepest hopes and fears when facing divine power. Artists use it to explore questions of distance, mystery, and the delicate line between the sacred and the ordinary. Our search for the physical chest is really a search for certainty in a confusing world. We want tangible proof that what we believe is actually real. The ark represents the ultimate proof we all long for. Yet the idea of the ark might be far more precious than finding the physical wood and gold. Symbols work differently than physical objects. They can hold many meanings at once. They adapt to new worlds while keeping ancient truths alive. This enduring power is exactly why the ark continues to see. It captivates people who have no direct ties to Hebrew or Christian traditions. It represents the shared human journey, our search for meaning, that longing for divine protection, and the hope that the sacred and everyday worlds can somehow connect. Shovels and dirt might someday reveal the physical fate of the ark. But its deeper meaning remains, no matter what archaeologists find. The symbol lives a life of its own, far beyond gold and wood. Modern faith often looks inward, not at physical objects. Yet the ark endures because it answers a deep human need that purely abstract belief just cannot satisfy. People want their inner experiences confirmed by the physical world. They seek proof that their personal moments with God connect to something larger. The ark bridges private faith and shared experience. It represents personal encounters with God while also holding the covenant of whole communities. This double role makes it vital for both quiet devotion and public worship. Even in an age of fragmented faith, the ark serves as a common anchor for different traditions. Jews, Christians, and Muslims all recognize its power, even if they see it differently. The symbol creates room for both unity and diverse beliefs. The lasting power of the ark suggests that humans need tangible touchstones for spiritual truths. High ideas might satisfy scholars, but most people need something real to grasp unseen mysteries. The ark offers exactly that connection, a symbol that has proven incredibly durable across centuries. Whether hidden in Ethiopian churches buried in desert caves or destroyed in the fires of Babylon, the ark keeps its sacred power. It remains the empty throne of the unseen Creator, where heaven meets the earth, holding the sacred right in the middle of our ordinary world. Echoing through modern culture, the golden chest that once rested in the Temple of Solomon has found a new life on movie screens and digital displays. The Ark of the Covenant leaped from ancient history straight into pop culture, becoming perhaps the most famous holy relic in modern media. Hollywood tapped into its cinematic power back in 1981 when Raiders of the Lost Ark exploded onto screens worldwide. Director Steven Spielberg and producer George Lucas turned the ancient mystery into a thrilling adventure that captured the world's imagination. Their vision would shape how millions of people pictured the lost relic. In the movie, the Ark possessed terrifying supernatural powers that could melt faces and destroy armies. This portrayal drew directly from biblical accounts, but amplified them for the big screen. The movie suggested that the chest was just as dangerous in the 20th century as it was in ancient times. The film made archaeology incredibly exciting for audiences everywhere. Indiana Jones became the ultimate model of the daring scholar combining brainpower with raw physical courage. The movie inspired countless young people to pursue careers in archaeology, even if very few found it quite as action-packed as the big screen promised. That success spawned a massive franchise that kept chasing ancient relics and supernatural mysteries. Every new Indiana Jones movie drew from different mythologies and legends, but the Ark remained the most memorable and haunting of all those ancient artifacts. The movie's focus on Nazi obsession with the Ark was actually rooted in history, though the details were highly dramatized for entertainment. Real-world Nazi expeditions did search for sacred relics, believing these objects could provide supernatural aid in their war effort. The filmmakers turned these strange historical footnotes into a gripping story. Following Hollywood's lead, TV writers began weaving the Ark into all sorts of shows. Everything from action dramas to historical documentaries featured the missing relic. Each interpretation added new layers to its modern myth. Networks like the History Channel and Discovery ran endless specials exploring Ark theories and searches. These shows mixed real science with wild speculation, often blurring the line between education and pure entertainment. Viewers were left trying to separate fact from Hollywood fiction. Science fiction adopted the Ark as a way to explore ideas about ancient technology and alien visitors. Some stories claimed that the Ark was actually alien technology left behind by ancient astronauts. These theories mirrored the public's fascination with UFO sightings. Video games quickly tapped into the legend. Players got to hunt for the sacred relic in digital worlds that blended historical mystery with high-stakes action. Titles like Tomb Raider and Assassin's Creed wove the Ark into their plots. The Assassin's Creed series made heavy use of real historical artifacts, bringing the Ark directly into its deep lore about secret societies and advanced ancient technology. Players stepped into stylized historical events while hunting for relics that could reshape human history. Tabletop role-playing games allowed players to build their own treasure-hunting campaigns. Game masters built worlds where players explored ancient ruins, cracked cryptic codes, and fought supernatural guardians to reach the treasure. The Ark became a staple of fantasy lore. Novels also embraced the legend across different genres. Action thrillers featured modern treasure hunters racing against the clock to find the relic before it fell into evil hands. Historical fiction explored the missing gaps in the Ark's biblical journey. Religious fiction used the relic to explore faith, doubt, and divine power, with writers imagining modern-day characters coming face-to-face with the relic and its impact on modern faith. These stories often blended raw adventure with deep spiritual reflection. Comic books and graphic novels offered vivid visual takes on the Ark narratives. Artists could show the intense physical events tied to the holy object in ways words simply could not capture. This medium proved perfect for displaying the Ark's rumored powers. Then came the internet age, bringing new kinds of Ark content. YouTube channels created documentary-style videos exploring various theories about where the sacred relic was hidden. Some creators claim to have insider details on a secret government cover-up. Online forums allowed enthusiasts to share their research and debate different theories about the Ark's ultimate fate. These digital spaces brought together amateur historians, devout believers, and curious skeptics who all found common ground in their obsession with this ancient mystery. Social media allowed Ark content to spread rapidly. Viral videos claim to show groundbreaking archaeological finds or leaked government documents. The sheer speed of information sharing made it tough to verify claims before they reached massive audiences. Meanwhile, streaming platforms began producing original shows focused on spiritual mysteries, including investigations into the Ark. These shows explored the mystery with far more depth than traditional television allowed, hooking niche audiences interested in specific theories or locations. This obsession with Ark-themed entertainment mirrored a deeper cultural interest in sacred history, archaeological discovery, and supernatural events. Audiences craved stories that blended historical accuracy with legendary elements. The Ark was the perfect vessel for these stories. Educational groups started using pop culture references to engage students in real history. Teachers found that kids who had watched Raiders of the Lost Ark were suddenly eager to learn about real biblical archaeology. Entertainment became a gateway to serious historical study. Museums capitalized on this public interest, creating exhibits about biblical archaeology and the search for sacred relics. These displays often referenced pop culture while offering hard facts about historical evidence. The entertainment industry's impact on public education was becoming hard to ignore. Critics argued that pop culture distorted how the public understood archaeological science and biblical history. They worried that entertainment value was overshadowing educational goals. The line between fact and fiction blurred when viewers could no longer tell them apart. Defenders pointed out that pop culture sparked interest in subjects people would otherwise completely ignore. They argued that entertainment could inspire real research, even if some details were inaccurate. The goal was engagement, not perfect precision. The Ark's long journey through pop culture shows how ancient symbols get constantly reinvented for modern audiences. Every generation finds new meaning in ancient stories. The sacred relic remains powerful because it speaks to deep human questions about power, faith, and mystery. Modern movies and media have made the Ark more famous than it ever was in antiquity. More people have learned about it through Hollywood blockbusters than through religious teaching or serious historical research. Pop culture has become the primary vessel for keeping the memory of this ancient relic alive. Naturally, this process changes the story. The Ark of popular imagination looks very different from the one described in ancient Hebrew texts. Modern interpretations emphasize raw power and spectacle, while ancient records focused on sacred ritual and quiet reverence. Yet both versions serve a similar purpose in their own times. The ancient Ark was the physical center of faith and national identity. The modern Ark offers wonder and adventure in an increasingly secular world. Both versions connect people to something far greater than themselves. Its presence in pop culture guarantees that the Ark will keep capturing imaginations for generations, whether the physical chest is ever found or not. Its symbolic power has been preserved and amplified by the entertainment industry. The physical quest might go on forever, but the story lives on. The throne remains lost. Dust settles slowly over the ancient pathways of Jerusalem. Archaeologists pack up their tools and close their dig sites. Treasure hunters head home empty-handed, clinging to wild, complicated theories. The Ark of the Covenant remains as elusive as morning mist, as mysterious as the day it vanished from the pages of history. 3,000 years have passed since Moses first looked upon the heavenly design on Mount Sinai. Empires have risen and fallen. Technology has advanced beyond ancient imagination. Yet the sacred chest that once bridged heaven and earth remains hidden from human discovery. The search has consumed countless lives and fortunes. Kings sent armies to track it down. Priests dedicated their entire lives to guarding secrets of its whereabouts. Scholars spent entire careers chasing leads that led nowhere. This lost throne of God has proven far more elusive than any earthly gold. Every new generation believes it holds advantages that past explorers lacked. Better maps, advanced tools, and a deeper understanding of ancient languages. Yet each group simply joins the long line of frustrated seekers who found everything except what they were looking for. Perhaps the Ark sits in the Ethiopian highlands, guarded by silent monks who will never reveal its secrets. It might lie buried beneath Jerusalem's sacred stones, waiting for political winds to shift before revealing itself. Or it may have dissolved in Babylonian fires, leaving behind only memory and legend. Perhaps the location matters far less than the search itself. Searching for the Ark has fueled wild obsessions and heartbreaking failures. It has driven explorers to the very ends of the earth and scholars deep into ancient manuscripts. It binds our modern world directly to its most distant past. The lost Ark has become a mirror for our own complex nature. We are creatures who need both the mystery and the reveal, both the questions and the answers. This sacred chest offers questions that are perhaps far more valuable than any answers. In a way, its absence speaks directly to the human condition. We hold incredible power, yet we remain bound by death and uncertainty. We can split atoms and explore deep space, yet we cannot locate a gold-plated chest lost to history. It is a quiet reminder that humbles our modern pride. Even with satellites, radar, and databases, certain things still remain completely out of reach. The ancient past stubbornly guards its secrets. Maybe staying hidden preserves the Ark's sacred power. Once found artifacts become sterile museum pieces, reduced to mere gold and wood. But lost things become legends, growing more powerful with every telling. For people of faith, there is actually comfort in this ongoing silence. They believe that something so sacred should never be scrutinized by academics or snapped by tourists. Its very concealment protects it from desecration and commercial exploitation. Skeptics, of course, suggest the Ark never actually existed, arguing it was always more myth than physical reality. They point to the total lack of physical evidence and the endless conflicting stories. Perhaps the search only continues because there was never anything to find. Yet symbols can feel far more real than physical objects. The Ark represents our deep hunger for a divine presence in a purely material world. It embodies the hope that the sacred and the everyday can somehow touch. We still feel that need, whether this golden chest was real or not. The story lives on because each new generation rediscovers these ancient questions. Kids read old texts and wonder what happened to those lost treasures. They watch movies about daring explorers, imagining themselves making the ultimate discovery. Technology will undoubtedly improve. Archaeological methods will become incredibly advanced. New texts might surface with lost details, and the hunt will continue with better tools. Even political barriers might dissolve, opening up once forbidden lands. Governments that block digging today might welcome international teams tomorrow, opening locked archives. Secret chambers will be explored. And yet the Ark may remain hidden, not because we cannot find it, but because we are not meant to. Some mysteries serve a purpose that answers destroy. Certain questions are simply more valuable. This empty throne reminds us that human knowledge has its limits. We cannot solve every mystery, nor can we recover everything we lose. Some treasures slip through our fingers and stay gone despite our best efforts. This uncertainty keeps us humble. It reminds us we do not own all knowledge, suggesting that mystery is a fundamental part of life, not just a problem to solve. The story of the Ark will be told over and over, regardless of whether the artifact is ever found. New books will be written, more movies will be produced. Wild new theories will constantly emerge, keeping this dialogue between our past and present alive. Perhaps that is the whole point. The Ark was never meant for a museum glass case, but to spark human imagination. Maybe its true power lies in inspiring us to keep searching and questioning. The physical throne remains missing, but the kingdom it represents endures. People still gather in holy places, seeking a touch of the divine. They still turn to ancient scriptures, searching for wisdom, believing heaven and earth can meet. The physical Ark may be gone, but its spiritual reality remains. In every act of faith, in every quiet prayer, with every act of worship, something of the Ark is reborn, pointing to a greater truth. And so the search goes on, not just for a lost artifact, but for what it represents. We seek the Ark because we seek God. We hunt the throne because we need a king. We pursue what is lost, hoping to find what we have misplaced within ourselves. The Ark of the Covenant remains hidden somewhere between history and legend, between what was and what could be. Its absence shapes our world today just as powerfully as its presence once shaped the ancient world. This empty throne still rules from the shadows, capturing our imagination and driving our endless search. In the end, perhaps that is victory enough. Maybe the search itself is better than the discovery. Perhaps the Ark wins its greatest victory by staying forever just out of reach, calling us forward into mystery and wonder. The throne remains empty, the quest continues, the story never ends.